Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 222. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. I know better than to tell Batman that riddles are for babies, and I'm not even a 12th level super intellect. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, Duke of and man who is probably able to say he is enrolled in Brainiac 5's new class on how to make friends and influence legendary superheroes.
How's it going, eh?
We're going to be talking, among other things, about the recent Legion appearance in Superman Batman number 75. And this episode's going to be a mixture of speeding bullets and some longer commentary on just a number of books that we've been enjoying lately. Jim, I want to shout out our listeners. August for us is the highest download month in show history, and that's old and new episodes, which means we've got a lot of new people that are listening to the show, probably some listeners from the past who've come back and are giving us a try again. And I really want to thank listeners old and new for either shouting us out or giving us a try. And I've heard a lot of people say that they've been telling people about the show. We rely heavily on that. So thank you so much for everything you've been doing, whether you've posted on blogs, websites, just told a friend, whatever. Every little bit helps. I want to thank fellow podcasters for doing that. We're big fans of cross-promotion. I know a lot of people have cross-promoted us. So I want to, thank you all for doing that. It's very cool. I was like, whoa, what an incredible month for us. And I want to thank everyone who was responsible for it. Kind of cool stuff. Jim, our sponsors are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. And I'm really excited to see all the deals that are going to be coming out from the brand new books this week. Is there like a line of books or a certain character right now that you're most excited to see what's happening in their titles or what new books are going to be coming out?
Well, I do want to see all the Bat stuff, see what's going to happen there, see when they come out. I know they're adding some more titles, and I want to see what's sticking around, what's shaking up. Is there going to be any kind of tweaks to the universe that I don't know about?
Do you know what books that are going to feature Dick Grayson?
See, that's the thing. I don't know which books are going to feature Dick Grayson.
I do. They announced it's going to be Batman, Detective Comics, and Batman and Robin are all really? Dick Grayson and with Damian as Robin.
Wow. So, I did not know that.
Yeah, huge. So I'm excited to see what the layout of the Bat universe is going to be. So obviously that's a sign that this whole Dick Grayson as Batman has been very successful because they're sticking him around in a major way.
He's got the two main titles.
And Justice League.
Yeah.
So, it's a big... Dick Grayson is really taking the world by storm.
Go from having a bullseye on his chest to being the Batman.
Yeah. Which is cool. I'm actually really excited about it. As a Bruce fan, I'm excited for the fact that we're going to be getting some really great Bruce stories coming. Batman Inc. and that new Finch book is going to be featuring Batman Dark Knight, I think, or The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
That book is going to be featuring Bruce. I didn't hear anything about Streets of Gotham. I don't know how that title's going to go or if that title's still going to be around. I'm hoping it will be because I'm hoping more Bruce.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for the Dick Grayson titles, and that makes a whole lot of sense to me with everything that's been going on there. But DCBService.com is your pre-order source, and if you're like us trying to figure out, like, hey, what's going on in the Bat books, or Superman books, or any of the other titles at DC, and what titles you're going to be budgeting out, DCBService.com is your pre-order source, and look for some of those amazing discounts that are going to be coming up at the end of the week. Jim, also sponsoring us this episode is InStockTrades.com, where you can pick up Tiny Titans Volume 4, the first rule of Pet Club, collecting issues 19 to 25 of the Eisner Award-winning series. Wayne Manor is overrun. There are penguins in the tub and bunnies everywhere. They've even driven the bats out of the Batcave, and this has a story co-written by Jeff John that hints at the events of Blackest Night. Regularly $12.99, 37% off only $8.18. That's Art Baltazar and Franco and Jeff Johns with art by Art Baltazar. That series is one of those, when you talk about paring down your titles, I could not drop that in a million years because every time I pick up an issue of it, I smile.
Yeah, that is pure joy. I really enjoy it. I laugh my head off. It's funny thing is I'm getting the floppies because I want every time it comes out I gotta read it. But I've been ordering some of these trades just because I know for rereadability, the trade's a little bit tougher.
I order for my classroom. The singles are for me, and when you're talking about readability, the trades last longer in my classroom. So this thing, as long as they're collecting it, I'll keep picking up the collections as well as the singles because I can toss it in my classroom. My students love it. And there's a lot of inside jokes, obviously, for people who have been longtime readers of Teen Titans or the DC Universe in general. But the way that the book is structured, the humor is so accessible to anybody, whatever your experiences are with comics or comic book characters, that it's just a wonderful, fun read. So, and I would say for fans of animation in general, you will enjoy this series because it does read like a cartoon. So that's InStockTrades.com, where you can pick up Tiny Titans Volume 4. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. And Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
You've been doing that a lot more lately. Enjoy!
And you want to know the sad thing?
What?
Is when I do it, I kind of like, I'm animated when I'm saying this stuff. So when I say enjoy, I'm sometimes like, turning my head, to kind of give it a woo-woo-woo kind of feel to it.
Are you static like other times? Because you said you're animated now. Are you like static other times? Or?
Yeah, right now I'm pretty static. I'm pretty, stationary. But, sometimes when I get talking, my hands will start flailing around, like a crazy man. But usually in the spoiler...
Danger, Will Robinson, danger!
Exactly, It's an Italian thing, I talk with my hands.
Are you saying are you saying the robot from Lost in Space was Italian?
Hey, he's a paisan. That's a paisan there. Come on.
All right.
He got a big pizza on his head. Come on,
You know what, on that note, let's talk some comics.
Carter Hall, scientific genius from a far-off world, flies into action as Hawkman.
Jim, there's so many books I want to talk about. I'll be interested to see how many of the ones that I actually have planned to talk about we get to. But I want to talk about Billy Batson and the Magic of Shazam number 19. I know I've said it before, but I am thrilled that this same team will be together for Young Justice. I loved the ongoing story with Freddie Freeman and his relationship with the Marvels. Due to circumstance, he blamed Captain Marvel for much of the hardships he's been through recently. This was to the point where he had to join Black Adam, who manipulated him into becoming Black Adam Jr. Freddie did eventually see the light, but I'm glad that he didn't instantly become friends with, like, Billy and Mary. It wasn't one of these things where, yay, magic wand, and we're now best friends and all that stuff. There was the sting that was still there, which felt very real. And that's one of the things that I like about this book, is that throughout it, yes, it's accessible to all ages, but there is depth. There is, there's nothing simple about this story. These are complex characters who have complex relationships. They have real personalities, and I think that even more so reads to something that's engaging for all ages. And I can't recommend this title enough for people who haven't been reading it.
Hey, this is the title that got me interested in going back and getting back issues and trades and whatnot of the Marvel family in the DCU. I never really had a strong, connection and or just feeling towards them. I was a Black Adam fan. I liked seeing when he comes in there. That's was my introduction to the whole Marvel family. This gave me a good intro, a good solid story, and just a connection with Billy, with Wizard, with Mary, with even Freddy. This was something that would give to any Shazam fan, any Marvel fan, and just say, hey, read this. This has gotta be what it felt like for the people back when these some of the golden ages of Captain Marvel.
Yeah, it's that kind of wow. And it's fun. He's an accessible character. He feels like a true hero. It is funny. I don't know if you're having this experience. Reading this book, it more distinguishes for me. As a kid growing up, before I saw the Shazam television show, when I saw Captain Marvel, I'm like, well, it's another Superman-style character. But as you get to know the character and start seeing the depth, and read series like Power of Shazam, and now this Billy Batson, The Magic of Shazam, you start to see that this character really has so much unique potential and so much unique story. There's distinct differences between this character and Superman, and I love that about him.
I really dig the innocence of when he's, because he's still a kid, so he's still, even though he has the wisdom of Solomon, he still is a kid, and there's still just that childlike presence and just, some of his dealings. That was something I liked the way this story handle that duality. The series handle it, and I was like, that was something that really shocked me because this is a Johnny DC line. I wouldn't think that they would go into, but they did. They went, they gave you that same kind of feel. This wasn't just a kid's book.
And see, I think that's becoming more common in all ages material. Because you know what? Realistically, kids don't want that. Kids want stories that engage them. Why is Harry Potter so popular? Well, there's a lot of depth to that story. So I think, we're seeing a lot of all ages material now that, I think the title, quote unquote, kids book, I think that needs to be kind of washed away. And, it's accessible, all ages material. Which, why is Harry Potter so widely popular? Because it appeals to everybody, of all ages, and they're characters that are real. They're very three-dimensional. You feel like you're hanging with them and you get to know them, and that is something that for this, because let's talk about this issue. In issue 19, Billy is aged and dying due to a run-in with a vampire-style character. And Mary and Talkie come to Freddy because they want to try and bring back the wizard who has vanished with Black Adam. There is this fear that Black Adam has returned as well. Freddy is asked to help as a backup of sorts and also as, a conduit due to his relationship with Black Adam. And I love there's some powerful moments here between Freddy and Talkie over loss and that Billy is the only family that Mary has left. And we get to see some of Freddy's compassion where we've seen a lot of anger from this guy. And there's some understanding from him of Billy and Mary. And that's where you start to see the walls come down a little bit. And I'm glad this is a gradual process. It felt very natural. But that's a very mature approach to this character, and it was something that I really appreciated. I'm like, wow, I'm digging this. I'm getting to know Freddy, and he's a character who I'm starting to enjoy because I've seen him grow from this guy who's really very disgruntled into somebody who's gruntled. It's a fun story.
Gruntle. Oh, okay. Yeah, it works for me. Yeah, and I got to co-sign just what you're saying. Just seeing the character develop, the character growth, and just you see the hero inside him, the decent person inside him stepping out, and he's able to push beyond pain, push beyond anger, and yeah.
Throughout the battle, Freddy is faced with a choice: give up his power to save Billy, which also means he will never walk again, or keep it and allow Adam to win. Imagine not being able to walk again, but to have the powers of Black Adam. What would you do? I mean, you're in a situation where your legs have been, the ability to move that way has been completely taken. Now you've regained it, and on top of it, we talk about the superpowers. He can fly. He can do all these other things, super strength. What would you do? Would you make the decision to give that up? Could you?
That'd be a tough thing to let go. That, seriously, he lost his, the ability to walk. He got it back and then some. Knowing he'd have to go back to, the way he was is just even worse than it was before. It's like, someone who was sick and then starts getting better and everything's fine, and then they go and relapse and they're once again sick again, and they're like, I had those moments where I wasn't sick. Everything was fine and normal. This makes this time now even worse.
There's an article out talking about whether or not superheroes are role models. But you take a look at what Freddie Freeman does here. He mans up. He saves Billy. It pays off, though, because the wizard points out that Billy might have a way to repay his new friend. This is a guy who had just given it all up, not knowing that there would be any chance for any other option or possibility, which to me I found very inspirational. I'm like, wow, that is super cool. Billy realizes that he can share his power the way Black Adam did when Freddy says his name and he becomes Captain Marvel Jr. And that was a moment where I knew that was coming, and that's something where I think great authors have the opportunity to, do something in such a way where it feels fresh, it feels new, and it surprises you, and you hurrah for the moment even though you know it's coming. Like, how many times have we seen Batman's origin or Superman's origin played out either in comics or on the screen? And when writers do it right, when great writers take an opportunity to, what can I do differently? How can I present it in a way that gets people energized in a modern way? And they did that with this, and I thought the whole Freddy story was very cool. It looks like this is a kickoff to the last major arc as Billy, Mary, Freddy will have to confront all of the previous major villains in the series, as Black Adam has brought them together in this final endgame thing. And if you missed out on this series, do yourself a favor and give issue 19 a try. I do feel like this issue is pretty accessible, as far as you can pretty much figure out really fast what's going on. This series gets a high recommendation for me for fabulous art and just amazing storytelling. And I'm glad to see, like I said, that this team is going to be continuing on Young Justice because because I just think that there's a real nice energy with what they're doing and the kind of storytelling. Bittersweet, because I want more of this book. And I'm hoping we have other opportunities to see them maybe do specials for something for Billy Batson, or, I don't know what the other opportunities would be there, but I'm hoping that this is a character that will not get shelved, and we'll get to see more of this, because it looks like they're going to give this a really nice send-off and bookend it in a way that hopefully fans that have never read this before can pick it up and really enjoy the opportunity to explore this universe.
Amen.
Jim, Superman Batman number 75. Can we talk a little bit about this?
Oh, yeah.
I'm very into the whole 75th anniversary of DC at the moment. It hadn't really, hit me. I knew that the 75th anniversary was this year, but it's been gradually, especially in the last couple months, that this is something that I've been getting into. I love this medium. I love that it's had such longevity, that a company can look back at such a rich history. No matter if you're a diehard DC fan or a casual fan, this is really impressive for the medium as a whole, and its staying power as an art form. It's a testament to the creativity of all the people behind the scenes for 75 years that worked to develop diverse and interesting comics while working to push the medium in a variety of directions to move forward for a new generation. That's hard to do. How do you keep these things fresh? How do you keep these concepts and ideas interesting throughout 75 years of changing eras? That's a lot of change in 75 years. And, the comic book concept over that time has changed drastically. But it's just so a lot about the staying power. Jim, Paul Levitz. Can I just mention that I'm digging the writing of Paul Levitz? Legion.
You're being a little, vague there. What do you think? Really?
Paul Levitz. Legion is so satisfying each month. In Adventure Comics, I feel the same way about. This, I've really enjoyed his Superman Batman work recently, but this issue in particular, and if you're not reading Superman Batman, this issue is very self-contained. It's something that there's a main story, and then there's some short stories throughout that are geared towards the 75 issues and a celebration there. It's a cool issue, so whatever your experience is, don't feel like I can't pick up this issue, and everything's complete. It's a done-in-one issue, so it is something that's really accessible for anybody. So if you're into this whole 75th anniversary DC Comics, you want to pick up something, it's very cool. Resurrection is the title of the Levitz story featuring the Legion. And actually, Jim, before I even go into talking about the specifics of it, when you and I were talking on the telephone, you had mentioned to me that you have not been picking up Superman Batman. So this is, I don't know how long it's been, but I know you picked up this issue. What was your experience with this book, and how did you feel about this issue?
Oh, I love this issue. It was, when I dropped Superman Batman, it had nothing to do with quality of writing. I was enjoying what I was reading. I've been trimming the fat down and getting rid of titles because I've realized I don't need to collect every single thing in the DC universe. Two, financially speaking, I should make cuts and apply the money elsewhere in my life. So I've been trimming down. And Batman Superman's a title that I was enjoying it. It was a neat, usually some nice stories. It was a nice little side story kind of deal. So I wasn't getting it. But like the last annual I picked up because of the Batman Beyond story. This one I got because it was the 75 anniversary, supersizing. It was definitely an enjoyable read. It's what I like about the Superman Batman title.
Do you then look at the solicits to see if the arc's going to be interesting to you, or how do you? Because like you said, you picked up the Batman Beyond arc. So did you drop it before that?
Yeah, I dropped it before Batman Beyond.
Okay. So
yeah.
What did you do? Read the solicits and saw the Batman Beyond arc was coming in, so you grabbed that?
Yep. Really how I do it with this one, because this is, I'm trying to get away from that mindset that I have that I have to have everything. I can't have breaks in my collection, and so I'm really doing that with Batman Superman, where I'm reading things. I go, yeah, I'll pick up this one issue here. I'll pick up this one issue here. It's, one of the things that I think is a strength for this title in that you can do that type of collecting. Yeah,
because the story arcs, you're right, are very contained. So you can read whatever, it's a 2 to 3 to 5 issue arc, and usually don't interconnect. Sometimes there might be a sequel to something, but that's very rare. They're actually usually very independent stories that you can come on and read, which is, you're right, that is a strength of this one. Resurrection, as I mentioned before, is the title of the Levitz story, and it features the Legion, Superman, and Batman dealing with a kryptonite-enhanced Luthor clone from the future gone wrong. And we got to emphasize on gone wrong. Jerry Ordway and Pete Patazis, and it's Pantazis, I always mess his name up, so I apologize, do an excellent job on the art. And they're teamed with Steve Wands on letters. And I have to compliment the lettering and the framing of the font in this story. Even though the story kicks off in the far future, the styling of this gives us this sense of a Lex cult, that almost they're worshiping scrolls or looking at, there's a history to this cult, and they worship his ideas. It does show how a man can develop into a religious legend over time, and how they might not be 100% getting what Lex's message was or what he was doing, but they've made their own interpretations. And the year is Lex 1042 in this religion, for example. I really liked that framing of everything because it set a mood and a tone before we even saw the Legion, and I thought that was something that was a strength of this particular story. The clone steals this Legion time bubble and goes through time trying to destroy Superman, and he first hits what would be our present, pretty close to our present day. Obviously, it was a little bit before what's currently happening now because Bruce Wayne is still Batman, but I took it to be a pretty present-day story. For Legion fans, this is a must-read as there are references to many of the current dealings with Earthman and how those distractions keep Brainiac from work such as putting away to trace the time bubbles in place. And I loved his whole explanation of, guys, I've been a little busy, I haven't had time to put that tracer in, but it's always filled with that little bit of a Brainiac pompous annoyance that we just know and love from him.
I'm really digging Brainy, and just once again, Legion is I'm coming into the fold, shall we say, at a late time, but I'm able to, just the stories I've read, I'm able to pick up these character personalities, able to appreciate that, and just seeing him interacting with these icons it was a neat experience.
Superman assumes it was the Legion coming to visit him at his favorite tree, and imagine his surprise when he runs into the Lex clone. I gotta admit that I geeked out at Batman sewing his arm post the night out in Gotham. I'm a big fan of Batman dealing with battle damage. Gotham's a harsh place, and we often see knives thrown around, gunplay with more than just thugs. He often deals with trained assassins and enraged psychopaths. Body armor's only going to help so much. And those little tiny details, those scenes are, they don't always happen in the comics, and I don't want to see them in every single issue of every single book. But when they do put them in, they seem to do a really good job of saying, hey, this might be a cool time to show something like this. And that little sequence was something I just appreciated. Dawnstar arrives with Superman, who is suffering from kryptonite exposure. How did you feel about the battle not being shown on screen? Because we didn't see what actually happened to get him in that state. We're left to assume that in our imagination. Do you like those type of sequences?
Yes and no. If it's every single time, then I'd be angry. But, you throw in those kind of series, once or twice here, I don't have an issue with it. This was, for me, this was fine because they had so much more they had to go into. If they spread this out over 2 issues, then I would have definitely wanted to see the fight, but this was contained within this one issue, within this one story, so I was like, I can accept that.
Going to Batman made so much sense. It isn't just about saving Superman and helping him recover. It's about figuring out the fake Luthor's endgame, and also how to stop him. The stealing of the serum and the riddle about going back to the beginning. I love how the Legion is from the future, but they recognize the value and abilities of the legends in the past. These are some of my favorite team-ups. And I love the bits with Batman with stealth, where she's like, can we sneak on out of here without anyone knowing? Because, you don't want to change elements of... They have to be very careful because they are tampering with the past. So they want to make sure they don't leave any evidence of their presence there. And I loved that little moment with Shrinking Violet where she's like, and he'd already snuck out and got them out by that point. And she's like, oh yeah, that's right. Kind of like, matter of fact, because it's Batman. I liked that. I love time travel and also the threat of paradoxes. Superman and Batman can't help because they're around in that time. Too much danger of causing a major problem with the time stream. Although events like that do keep Rip Hunter working, and in this economy there's nothing wrong with that. So there's that to think about.
We got to keep the Time Masters employed. We all have to do our own little part.
Yeah, so it's a little paradox between friends. Yeah. This issue just really moved along. Jumping back to the classic Superboy era was a real treat. Not only was the fight with the fake Luthor and the resolution interesting, but I loved those Legion explanations for how... They're simple, but it's a good explanation for how Superboy doesn't know his future. Due to the weakening from the kryptonite, she took the memory of the event from him, and it's also why his adult self, who we see it later, Didn't see it coming. I love tiny details that afterwards you don't go, oh, they screwed up there. He would have known. I also got the impression that she did this, and you probably, I don't know if you agree with me or not, that she did this with some of the onlookers, so that way nobody knew.
Oh, definitely did that with onlookers. Just, there's no way they could not have. They had to keep, the continuity, because they make the comment about how they'll take care of everything, and it took care of all the people around kind of deal. So, yeah, it's definitely implied that she did some mind wiping and or memory tweaking with some of the witnesses as well.
This is a cool way to allow heroes from the future the opportunity to interact in the past and with iconic characters from the past without throwing off our sense of events. They did happen, but the hero couldn't remember them. That's why these things, they can continue doing events at various times in the past of these characters' lives. It's also cool because it's possible that more Luthor clones can show up in the future because they've been unable to trace, I should say, the source of where this came from. So will we see more of this religious cult or whatever it is, or could this be a one-off? I'm not sure, but Levitz and the whole team, I thought, did a fantastic job on this particular story.
I'm hoping we see more of them in the Legion stories.
The rest of this issue is filled with 1 to 2 page stories and artwork honoring the anniversary. The Billy Tucci story about the comic convention with the kids playing Superman and Batman was fun. I loved that, because at first I'm like, oh, this is there's a giant Joker and Batman and Superman have to deal with him. But then we quickly see that it's these kids that have gotten so absorbed into the role. I love that the kids got to the point where they were scaring the adults in the Joker and Catwoman garb. I have to wonder if I would be just as scary if I ran around with a Batman outfit. Because if you think about that commentary from Christian Bale about how it makes him feel like a beast, and that's what he draws from, and of course you and I are scary enough without the costume, so I don't know.
Dude, I would pay money to see you run around the con, in a Batman costume.
As long as you were dressed as Superman, I'm there. What's the way to clear out a convention hall? Adam Hughes also had an interesting offering honoring Supergirl and Batgirl and how their lives have evolved. It was a real sweet, kind of simple piece, and I really liked it. The artwork was really sharp. J.T. Krull on Red Robin and Dick Grayson with the kiss and Cassie, and that whole little bit about never kissing Selena going on, and Superman doing the same conversation with Superboy about Bruce Wayne potentially kissing Lois, and how would Clark feel about that. I just thought it was a continuation of what I liked so much in that Adventure Comics issue with the reveal. And there's something about the way these two characters are written together, and the artwork was so sharp on that. And it was just a really nice special piece. There are many more, and I just want to say that this whole package came together in a really nice mix of serious and fun offerings that just felt great. It felt like an end of one era for this book, and I don't know if you felt this way, but the beginning of another. It was I felt like it was a concluding chapter in its own way, even though there was no story that was particularly tied up or anything to indicate that. It just felt like an anniversary issue where sometimes they don't give you that same satisfying feeling like, wow, we just really celebrated something and we're moving on to... This felt like that. It felt interesting. It's a cool issue, and I recommend it highly, whether you read this book regularly or not.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not regularly getting this monthly. I picked this up. I enjoyed it. They had some good stories in there, and this is one of those nice standalone reads that you can pick up and reading and enjoy.
Jim, I want to give a shout-out to a couple of quick things. Over at the Baltimore Comic-Con, they always have the Harvey Awards, and Wednesday Comics nabbed the top honor for Best Anthology. And,
nice.
Yeah, and that was one where that series was just something really special when it came out, so that's very cool. Another big announcement that came out of there that I think is a big announcement, very cool. I've been really digging this Batman Beyond miniseries, and especially the relationship with Bruce, what's going on with butting of heads. Bruce has this idea of what he wants him to do, and Terry McGinnis is very much, he's into the role. He is Batman right now. He's his kind of Batman. It's what I'm liking about the Dick Grayson Batman right now is Terry McGinnis is not trying to be Bruce Wayne. He's trying to be Terry McGinnis. And he's being a very good Batman in his own way, often butts heads with Bruce. And I love that kind of relationship between the two, to the point where Bruce has these robots that he's ready to send on with Terry as backup to kind of lead his own agenda. And it is kind of interesting to see Bruce. I'm going to be curious to see Bruce with Dick Grayson because of the relationship I'm seeing with Bruce with Terry McGinnis, because I think this is very true to what was going on in that Batman Beyond cartoon. But that's going to be an ongoing series, Batman Beyond now. Are you liking that mini? Are you excited for that to be a monthly book now?
See, I'm liking the mini, and I like the TV series and all this stuff. And I was thinking in my head, okay, what if they make this into a monthly? Would you pick this up? Would you add another new title? And this is a title, I'll be honest with you, where I don't know if I'm going to get it or not.
Wow.
You know, it's once again, it's got nothing to do with quality of writing. It's a good story. I'm really enjoying what it is. As I said, I like the TV series. This has this great feel. We're seeing a different version of Bruce Wayne, kind of. You know, we're seeing the older Bruce wayne, but it's not like this is who's this cranky old guy. No, it fits into who Bruce Wayne was. The whole Batman mythos, Terry doing his thing, trying to, have his life outside of the cape and cowl, and continue on with that. And I really enjoy seeing that dynamic, but I'm collecting so much stuff. And there's so many new Batman titles that I cannot say 100% that I'm picking up the series. Now, I hate to judge a new series coming out without having read anything. So I'll probably pick up the first story arc just to see it, because it's hard for me not to pick it up just because I know I enjoy the characters. But I don't know. But it's funny, as I'm saying, I'll probably pick it up. I'm also in the back of my head saying, no, this is where the heart and the head conflict. My heart is saying, yeah, pick it up, give it a full story arc. That's the only way to make a fair, reasonable decision. And then my head's saying, no. You're trying to cut back on your pull list. You're trying to reduce the amount of reading you have to do and the cost of all of of your hobby. You're trying to cut this back. Don't pick it up. Don't even get a taste for it. So it's a definite battle that will be waged within the confines of my psyche.
The story I'm enjoying so much. I like what Adam Beecham's doing. I love the artwork in it. I've really enjoyed the Hush. Is it really Hush? Is it Imposter? I've loved that he's been going after classic Calendar Man. We got to see him gone after. Various classic Batman villains have been attacked by this quote-unquote Hush. Do you think that is Hush?
Yes, actually, I was thinking it is Hush. Now, granted, if it was Hush, he'd be the same age as Bruce. Mm-hmm. But who knows? Hush didn't beat himself up as much as Bruce did. Bruce continued on as the Batman role until his body really finally gave out. So if when Hush, quote unquote, was killed, if he just hung out, he probably would still be able to move, still be able to fight, and still be able to throw down. Now, the other side I'm thinking is, what if it's not Hush? What if it's the new Hush? And the new Hush is being trained like, Bruce. There's the original Hush is the Bruce Wayne version for Terry McGinnis, if that makes sense. He's kind of like mentoring this new Hush to take out the new Batman.
Is it really Hush Beyond?
Right, it's Hush Beyond. Yeah, exactly. Those are my two theories I got going.
See, I'm enjoying the story enough. It's funny when you're talking about there being more Batman books. See, to me, my hope is with the Batman titles that there's a focus on making each one unique enough that they're worth it. If I had to make a cut of a Bat title, for example, because I've had to do this before with Bat books, I've shared it on one of the previous episodes, that there's been many times in my comics where I couldn't get every Batman book that was being published. And I'm a Bat junkie. When I sacrifice a Bat title, what I had to do is, what kind of fixes am I getting? What's this book giving me versus this book? And in the case of Batman Beyond, what makes that one a winner for me is I'm getting a vibe and a flavor of a story in there that I'm not getting in any other Bat book. And I like that whole, because it takes place, I'm assuming it doesn't take place in the DCU, like our DCU. I think it takes place on one of the multiverse worlds, or we do get to see Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, and I loved all that because I'm a big fan. You talked about it on the show, progression. This is one of those areas where I like progression. I like seeing this future world, and I like the idea that it doesn't mean that the current stories we're reading have to lead to this. They could, but they don't have to. So it's fun to see this exploration of this for a lot of the reasons, like seeing that future Dick Grayson, that future Tim Drake, and their interactions with Terry, and clearly that there's some friction in the whole Bat world, and over time something happened to separate these people. I like that kind of stuff, and I find it intriguing, and I hope we do see more of Tim and Dick. They don't have to be in every issue, but more of the major players in the Bat world. I like Barbara Gordon being the commissioner. These are things that are all I'm really enjoying and digging in the exploration of that book. So it's got me, I think it's pretty clear you're kind of on the fence on it. I'm really hooked into it for its uniqueness in Batman storytelling. And if I were to make a drop of a bad title, right now this is not one of the ones that I would put on that chopping block because of how unique it. I would have a hard time doing it if I had to.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things where, as I say, as the words come out of my mouth, I'm fighting them. So I can't say yes, I can't say no right now. This is going to be a battle of wills.
Reaching melting point. Not sure we can make it.
Superman, the Last Family of Krypton, #1, Elseworlds. I mean, this was an Elseworlds book and I love seeing that Elseworlds logo on a cover. And I wanted to make sure to shout this one out because of how amazingly cool it was. The premise, for anyone who didn't read this, is what if not only Clark made it to Earth, but also Jor-El and Lara? How would that change the overall story? How would they adapt? How would Earth change? And Metropolis because of it? Cary Bates writes an amazing story that is a very fresh take on the idea of the Superman mythos. Renato Arlim, and I apologize for any name butchery, and a friend of the show, Alan Pasalacqua, they hit a home run on the art on this one. This was something that, for me, I was like, whoa, what a cool book. I'm assuming you picked up this title?
No, I picked it up, man. I am loving this title, and I'm telling, every so often, people at work will foolishly say, hey, so what's new with comics? And usually I go into a nice 20, 30-minute rant. As they walk away from me, I'll continue following them and continue talking to them just because that's how I am. I get a little sick pleasure out of doing it to coworkers. But this has been one of the topics I talk about, how, and I tell them it's an Elseworld story, just kind of a what if. The whole Superman family actually came to Earth, and like, oh, wow. This is a story, just telling them the basic stuff behind it, that I've gotten non-comic book fans to stop, look, and listen to me and say, oh, that's kind of neat. That's a neat idea. I'm like, I don't know where this is going to go with it. And so it's definitely a really cool concept, and a really great story is being told. I'm really digging this.
I love the retelling of the destruction of Krypton and why this family chose Earth. Jor-El and Lara quickly becoming media celebrities and how their presence led to a metropolis becoming much more varied than from what it was today. The use of Jor-El's ship and the way the tech grew into this massive building that would influence the direction of Metropolis. How do you think Earth would react if aliens were really here?
To be honest, if it's one alien like this, they may embrace them, but as that's one of the things I liked about War of New Krypton. You have this planet of all these aliens, and we immediately saw the negative and not the good. And unfortunately, that is the nature of human beings. And it's our dark side that's within us that, a lot of times we're pessimistic, we're nervous, we're afraid of what we don't understand. So if we see a large group of people, we're going to immediately think the negative side. Oh, they're here, they're an invading force. No, they're just people looking for a place to live like we are. No, they're invading. But if it's one person, one alien comes in, we'll enter in our head, well, we outnumber them. We're okay with this. So it's definitely. I would see people being very paranoid and very nervous, especially once these superpowers started manifesting, once they started seeing exactly what these people can do. I could see them going, okay, we have an issue here. Let's start, thinking contingencies. Let's figure out what hurts them. Let's have a backup plan set up.
I do like that Jor-El and Lara have this huge advantage that they look human. And I do think you're right that alien-wise, is there a possibility they'd be embraced? Yeah, I think if they looked different, knowing human nature, I think they'd have problems. But I do think human nature would put them in a little bit of trouble, possibly as well. And I think we're going to see some of that in this.
The movie and or TV show, depending on which one you saw, Alien Nation.
Oh, yeah,
I thought it was a great representation of what would happen if aliens arrived on Earth. Because, that was a slave ship. They were looking for freedom. They were trying to get away from oppression. And you'd think that people would, we would be more embracive and like, hey, yeah, sure. Well, we did that. And then once they started landing, people started saying, hey, they're taking away some jobs. They're taking away this. What's going on here? And you saw that, that negative and that hostility coming out, the hatred towards the the aliens, towards your culture. They started losing who they were. They're like, we don't want to become Earthlings. We are who we are, kind of deal. And that was the thing I loved about that TV show and the movie. I'm seeing that kind of stuff go on with this story. Now, it probably won't go in as depth because that had a lot longer to tell out the story, but you are seeing glimpses of, can they hold on to their Kryptonian heritage? Does the Kryptonian religion, Kryptonian politics start influencing American, actions in what's going to happen there?
Because Lara's bringing a lot of that into the media, into the public consciousness, which I really like. It's fun. Did you see District 9?
Yes, I did.
And I'm thinking District 9 was something that I don't think this isn't going to go all District 9, but no. I do think there were elements of truth in District 9 as well, particularly in the idea that I don't think that one decision that groups of people would make towards aliens would fit the entire human race. I think there would be people that would rebel against it. I think that there would be humanitarian people who would kind of see the light, and so I think that's very interesting in explorations in comics when aliens come into them. But I don't think this is going to head in that direction. It was just funny how this got me thinking about there's a variety of different ways people could react. I could see it going this way, depending on the media spin. And that's what I love about this, and I think one of the engaging things about this story is how media influenced Jor-El and Lara are, how they've really worked the media and become sensations that way. And I think that is what is making them survive. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think that is something that is keeping them current, keeping them thumbs up versus because we love following controversy. We love following people's lives. We're a reality TV show. How many reality TV shows are on television right now? And I do think that these two would be very successful, though. I know I'd watch it.
Oh, God, yeah. And it's, we love to put, celebrities on a pedestal, and we love to see them fall. Yeah. Right now, these two are rock stars. They're on the pedestal. Everyone's excited. Everyone's got that, that pro, feeling towards them. But we know mankind will want to see them fall. Somewhere there is I guarantee it. There is a military unit planning on how they would take them down. They have, attack plans, strategies, kind of like what we saw General Lane do with the War of New Krypton. You have to have that contingency. There's no way that kind of mindset would just purely accept the good that they can bring. They would think, on the other hand, what if they try to conquer us? Maybe they're not going to. Maybe they are, here to help people and, do the right thing by us. But what if they get bored with us? What if they decide it's their way or the highway? And, so we got to fight them off. So somewhere there is a military squadron. There is a military team developing the Kryptonian contingencies.
Do you like reality shows that are train wrecks? Like where you talk about how, because I do think you're right that people like to see celebrities fall. Not everybody, but I do think that that's something that people initially like to see. Do you like that kind of stuff, or do you prefer something where it's more balanced?
I used to love those things. I was a real world junkie and the road rules and all those things, and I don't know if it's. It could be just growing up, maturing, or I don't know what it is. But lately, the train wrecks have been angering me, and I'm not enjoying them. For example, I'm not watching any of the Real Worlds. I haven't seen it for multiple seasons. That show, Jersey Shore, I've never really watched that. I know who they are. I know enough of the premise behind it that I'm like, this is not the kind of reality TV. The kind of reality TV I'd like is World's Deadliest Catch. American Pickers, stuff where it shows real people doing something in their life, and just because their job is a little bit different, it becomes interesting. And that's the kind of real TV I like. Mythbusters, love that stuff just because it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of neat. And some of the History channels, the Discovery channels, the Food channels, different. The Guy Fieri with Diners, Drive-Ins, Dives. You got Man versus Food. That's my kind of reality TV. That's the kind of shows I enjoy watching.
I guess when I'm talking about reality, I'm taking it beyond just the actual structured shows. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Like the whole stuff with Mel Gibson. Okay, that was interesting at first when that happened, but it got old fast. It was like, for me personally, that was like enough. There's a certain point where I was like, all right, enough already. I'm tired of it. Let's move on. Same thing with Lindsay Lohan, with the fact that, she went to prison and all that stuff. I'm not going to say that I wasn't interested and I didn't follow it at first. Sure, I did. Like a lot of people did. But I hit a point where I'm like, enough already. I do find that, like, when it comes to reality and I'm following, celebrities or television shows or things. My wife watches the Kardashian shows and stuff like that. But if it doesn't have some kind of balance for me where there's like uplifting moments amidst the realities of like, okay, they're human and there's some flaws in their life and that type of thing, I get worn out fast enough because it brings me down. Like, I love this, and where it does tie back into this whole thing, I do see this as being, they're people that I think would have longevity on television. Because, yeah, they do slip-ups and they have issues and, like, people are following their marriage being potentially in turmoil and stuff like that throughout it. But yet, then there's moments where you see them, they're having kids again. And, Lara pulls herself together and she's got her own thing going on with religion and she's doing the talk show circuit. And they take their child out of the media spotlight and put him with the Kents in an effort to give him, because Lara really wants him to have a quote-unquote semi-normal upbringing, and to really understand some of the culture that they're in. But I do love that Jor-El, is kind of pushing for, we want him to have some of his Kryptonian heritage too, and it almost puts like a rift between him and his view of his son, which I thought was quite interesting, how he seems to be bonding more with Lex Luthor when he comes in, because they seem to be more in sync. And I don't know that that's necessarily, it's kind of oversimplifying the relationship there. But see, that's the kind of thing where, like, if I'm watching a reality show or even a television drama or something like that, I like that because, yeah, there's some drama in there and things like that where, some negatives, but there's also positives in there, and we're seeing, productive things. And I like what we're seeing with Clark, and that we're going to potentially, is he going to turn into the Superman that we're used to? Or are we going to get something different? How do the siblings change that? Will the siblings follow the same path as Clark? Will they be raised by the Kents as well? Or will there be sibling rivalry? And, is Lex going to turn now, or will his relationship with Jor-El bring him down a different path? I don't know.
Well, I see the relationship of Lex and Jor-El really being the cornerstone behind the hatred and the animosity between Lex and Kal-El. Mm-hmm. That's where we're going to get the sibling rivalry. The newborns, the babies, I don't see there being too much in the rivalry. That may take Mom out of the picture and leave Dad and his two sons, and that kind of conflict, that kind of turmoil. I could see Lex embracing more of a Kryptonian life and a Kryptonian style of thought, where Clark starts embracing more of the Kansas farm boy, and that in itself will cause the headbutts between them, because Lex hated living in Smallville. Lex hated just being down there on the level, being there with those simpletons, and the cretins that he just was so far above. He really, Lex would love to be a Kryptonian in this, environment. And I think that's a great way to, once again, still have the Lex Luthor Superman rivalry and, turmoil between the two of them, but have it be a little bit different. Whereas before it was, more of Lex saying, I am the greatest human. We don't need this, filthy Kryptonian, to now where he's like, this is the path you should live. This is how you should be. You shouldn't be like these commoners.
I think that's where did the reality show comment come from me. I think, and I am lumping in like what we see in the internet media and, your TMZs and stuff like that are going on nowadays into that. So I'm kind of overgeneralizing my concept of reality shows and saying that, unfortunately, I think a lot of lives have now been pushed into being reality shows that maybe shouldn't be. And in some cases, some of them where they want them to be. But I think we've got an interesting mixture there. I think where this story feels like what I like in reality shows are, my favorite shows like that, and my favorite television dramas, are ones where there's characters that are engaging, that you can get behind. Yes, they have some flaws along the way, but there is a balance of, like, I want to see how Clark's going to react to Dad. And, are these things... And I do think a lot of reality shows do head down this path where you kind of see this moment. Is Clark going to finally tell Dad off for being around that Lex? Why isn't Dad giving Clark more time? And, why is Dad so obsessed with his, little scientific things and he's not spending enough time with Mom? But then we do get to see him spend time with Mom, and we all get that yes moment because we all wanted to see him finally acknowledge his wife, and now they've got these kids coming out of the whole thing. Yeah. And it seems like that now she's got an independent thing going on because of it. And I do like her strength in this, like, that she was the driving force between them being with the Kents. And I am curious to see the influence of the Kents and what that means, and how it's going to ultimately react, how it's ultimately going to affect not just Clark now, but the parents and the kids. And how are they going to affect the Kents? Is their story going to go different? I don't know. It's something. I'm enjoying this so much that, and it's funny. I was wondering how you were going to be, because you've been talking a lot about how whether it's in continuity or not makes a lot of your decisions. I'm taking it from your comments that this is nowhere near ever going to be on the chopping block.
Oh no! One, it's it's a 3-issue limited series. It's an Elseworld story. Definitely. I was like, yeah, this is cool.
See, to me, this is making me salivate for more Elseworlds, and I'm hoping we get more from this. I would even, I'll go another direction and say, I'm enjoying this enough that I could see myself enjoying following. I don't know where this is going to go in the 3 issues, but if there's an opportunity to do a follow-up, I would love to continue following this world, because this has really captivated me right from the get-go. I wish this was a series.
Yeah.
I do.
Now, if this became a series, that would change the picture. I would look at it a little differently. Now, because this is such a cool Superman story and I'm really enjoying it, I could see myself, if they said, well, we're going to turn this into a series, I could see myself jumping in and saying, oh, okay, I'm in.
Yeah, and that's what I'm liking about it. So it is one of those things where it's a gorgeous book. Jim, I want to talk a little bit casually about that JLA JSA, the final chapter. It was Justice League of America, number 48. And the Starheart takes center stage, and we quickly learn that Alan Scott has a lot to overcome. This really shows us the power of what Alan Scott brings to the table. His ability to overtake the Starheart, especially with his increased power. There is something so majestic and iconic in that spread of him when we see, like, Jay Garrick going, wait, that's Alan, he's back. And you get to see him in his costume again. I was just like, yeah. He looked really impressive in that moment. And it was something in this story where I'm finally feeling like this whole event feels epic. It has an epic conclusion, an epic wrap-up. Did you find this a satisfying story and a satisfying ending?
I did find it a satisfying story and a good ending. I do have just some questions. My main question isn't really involved with the story. It's more of the connection to Brightest Day with Jade. Because we see her get her vision as to what she's supposed to do, and then on the very next page it says mission accomplished, life returned. And I'm like, what did she do? She didn't do any balance other than, not join with her brother, separated from her brother. And I'm like, is that what she was supposed to do? So I was like kind of confused as to that way.
Because of what she did, she weakened the Starheart. Because of the fact that she stayed apart from him and then influenced Alan Scott at that point, she weakened the Starheart.
Okay.
So that's where she brought a balance to the darkness, because the darkness was taking over.
Yeah, but the only thing is, Eclipso had nothing to do with this.
You're talking about the appearance of Eclipso in the back. Maybe, we haven't seen Eclipso yet, so why Eclipso?
Yeah, so that was the thing. I'm just like, I just want a little bit more info on that. And I'm wondering if we'll probably get it later on, either in the Brightest Day series, maybe in JLA stuff, or JSA stuff.
You know what we're going to see? We're going to have to eventually see an exploration of why they can't be together.
Yeah.
And because they did say at the end of this, I'm assuming this isn't a red herring now with what, I guess I kind of assumed that they're going to put that on the back burner for now, and this is an explanation as far as why the two of them are apart. But maybe we're going to get some exploration as to what is keeping them apart, and that's where Eclipso is going to come in? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
That is a question mark for me. I actually agree with you on that. Did that take away from your ending of it?
No. I still enjoyed it. I still thought this was a nice, cool crossover. I loved the beginning of this issue because we get to see Mr. Terrific pull in Power Girl and pull in Supergirl, but they're not there for their brawn, they're there for their brain. Both of them have the scientific background, but they also have the Kryptonian superhuman speed, and that's what he needed. He needed that kind of, one, he needed the scientific knowledge, but he needed them to do it super fast, faster than he could do, and I thought that was a cool component, and especially like the explanation that, where Kara's saying, hey, I usually don't show off my brain power because we got enough of a brain trust in the JSA. I kind of keep that separate for my secret identity and whatnot. I usually throw down more. I thought this was just a great explanation of all that because it does make sense. Both of them do have this background. It's something that's usually not getting utilized as much as it could be, but here's an explanation on how you pull it in, why it's relevant, and why we don't normally see her doing the brain trust side. I thought that was just a great little part of the story. I was like, damn, that's cool.
And I love that it showed not just Karen, but Kara as well, how her dad was part of that guild, and that, sometimes we need a little reminder that she came to Earth older than Kal-El did. So she had this rich life on Krypton with her family, and did actually come here with some experiences that sometimes need a little reminder that she's got some experience that we didn't expect. I like that. I like that little aspect about her, that there is something a little bit different about her. She wasn't an infant at the time, and it's a great way to bring that character in and have her add something new, make a new statement for the Superman world. And that's cool. I dig that whole thing, and I'm with you. It was great to see Mr. Terrific acknowledge that, hey, the two of you at the speeds they can move and with your mental abilities can do a little bit more here. Another Mr. Terrific moment that I liked was him with Dick Grayson. I love Dick as a leader here. He takes responsibility for the whole team, but he isn't cocky. He's constantly self-evaluating and works to improve. And the internal dialogue here, I think, has been a strength of James Robinson's, both with him and in particular Donna Troy. But this is the sign, what Dick Grayson's doing here, of a truly great leader. I love that Mr. Terrific shares his own mistakes with Dick. There's a show of respect in a bonding here. And great leaders don't need to be perfect. They have to realize when something is not working and strive to adapt. That's what saves lives. That's what solves problems. That's what's the difference often between a victory and a loss, is recognizing what is going wrong quick enough to make a change. And if you can't self-evaluate, if you can't make those changes and correct midstream, a lot of times when villains come in and they throw a curveball at you, they're going to overtake you and take you out. I love that. There was something about it. I'm like, ooh, I'm getting very into learning what he's like as a leader and what he brings to the table. And that's something that's cool. I did like also with Mr. Terrific, that moment where he realizes that Dick is interested in Jesse Quick on the team after her performance in the battle. Because we got to see in the previous sequence when Jesse Quick was battling, Dick Grayson was analyzing what she was doing. And obviously with his relationship with Wally West, he knows what it's like to watch a speedster. And her drive and combat skills, she brings something to the team that needs a seasoned speedster. And that was cool.
Oh, definitely. And you know what? I like that we see them saying, yes, I'm in, okay. And even the little bit between her and our man, just, everything's cool here. It was just this nice, usage of her. And it was just a definite cool presentation of Dick Grayson in the Batman cowl. Everyone, they're not looking at him now as the new Batman. They're looking at him as Batman. Yeah. I thought that was a very distinctive we have to have this. We have to have not only his friends recognizing him this way, but his outside universe, outside of his, the Titans will definitely recognize him as the leader. We needed the other people recognizing that as well, and I'm so glad we got that.
Well, I felt bad for Jade and Obsidian. The fact that they have to stay apart to balance the darkness. One of the things I liked about this, you talked about that we've gotten a resolution for what her goal was, in the sense that her life is restored now because she's met her goal. Yet, I like that just because she's met her goal doesn't mean that story's over. I think for some of them it's very much going to mean that story's over. For other situations it's not always going to mean that it's over, and I like that kind of mixture of something from a little bit over here, something for a little bit over here. I don't want them all to have these endings, if that makes sense, in ways that you would expect them to. I didn't expect her so soon, but I like the way that it all worked out, because I agree with you, there's still questions coming from it, and are you interested in those questions?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm definitely into the whole what's going on with the with those two. What's going on with the team? There's still more. Even at the end of this issue, they're still setting up for more future stuff because you have that final thing where Kara is flying through Metropolis, and you get the reflection off of the one building is the Black Lantern version,
No.
the dark version of her. Or...
Yeah. Did you see? What is your exposure? Have you read all the issues of this Supergirl series?
No.
Very early in her run, there was a dark version of her.
Okay.
And that's going back to very early in the Supergirl run. I'm assuming it's that Supergirl, not a Black Lantern version. That's actually the identical outfit and look that dark version of her had. And I'm wondering if that awoke that dark version of her again. And we're going to see that come back.
Now, didn't we get... Didn't that get cleared out of her because of the kryptonite poisoning?
No,
and the dad pulled it out of her?
This is different than that.
Oh, okay.
That was her attitude, was influenced by that. This was actually a dark version of her that was brought in. This was due to Darkseid. Some stuff that Darkseid was doing to manipulate her and mess with her. And then later on, it led to, there was a dark version of her in her series. It was when Ian Churchill was doing the art on it early on. So it's definitely in the early issues. I'm going to be honest, I'm being a little vague on it because I have to go back and reread those issues again. But this was very early in the actual solo Supergirl run. It was actually after I was talking about the Darkseid part. The Darkseid issues happened in Superman Batman. This was post that in the beginning of her run. There was a couple of covers. One was done by Michael Turner and one by Ian Churchill. Actually, I think they teamed up on it, where one would do Supergirl and one would do the dark version on the cover. And there was 2 variant editions of it with those 2 different versions of Supergirl that spun out of it. So I think they're going back to that and bringing that in, and that's a reason, because that part was never truly gone from her, is why it couldn't take over, and now it's awakened that and it's sentient from this. I don't know. I'm speculating right now because all we've seen is an image in a glass window. But I'm like, the point I'm making is that particular look for Supergirl has a definite history to the character's solo title. I don't know what Robinson's going to do here with that, or how long we're going to have to wait, because I don't necessarily believe that's something they're going to right now. It might be something that appears later, because I know we're going Crime Syndicate soon, like next 2 issues. So it's going to be the Justice League versus the Crime Syndicate.
Nice. Definitely want to see that one, because it's not going to be the traditional Justice League up against the Crime Syndicate. Going to curious to see how they deal with the Crime Syndicate and how the Crime Syndicate reacts to them if they're not up against Superman or Wonder Woman or Bruce Wayne.
Right. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be very interesting in that series, to see how they deal with the Crime Syndicate. And James Robinson said it's issue 50 that it's going to be. So I think 49 is going to be kind of the lead into that. So maybe there'll be some resolution of that Supergirl thing. I do think it's going to be more of a lead in, though, to why they're fighting the Crime Syndicate. I may be wrong. We'll see what happens next issue. But Robinson was making the point of saying that there's going to be definite reasons as far as why Superman and Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, couldn't be a part of this. Why they're okay and actually very confident in the abilities of this team to handle this. So there's going to be some definite explanations there, and kind of a nod from those team members as to, from those former team members, I should say, as to why this team is valid in what it's doing, which I think is cool, because I would want to know, why wouldn't they go, why wouldn't they be a part of it? So that's kind of cool. This team is really developing for me in a way that I'm finding very satisfying. I'm very JLA happy at the moment. We've got iconic characters represented here. Batman is Dick Grayson, who will be obviously in Batman Detective Comics and Batman and Robin, but his history in comics, Dick Grayson's, is just tremendous and huge. And this is something that's a long time in coming. I've always wanted to see him leader of the Justice League in this capacity. Donna Troy, her iconic role as Wonder Girl, and years in the Teen Titans have put her in this spot. She's the Wonder Woman, obviously, archetype for this particular series. With what's going on with Diana right now, it would make perfect sense that Donna Troy's the person in this place. And this is a great chance, again, another person that has gone through so much in her life, so much maturing throughout the years, long time in coming, long overdue, that she's in this capacity. Jade is the Green Lantern for the team. I'm glad we got to see her recharge Kyle's ring. There's more to her power that she doesn't know. I'm hoping we get to see more of this explored, because that was oh, she did what?
Yeah, that was kind of neat, and she's a character that I don't have a lengthy or in-depth understanding and history with her, so seeing her, kind of get fleshed out here is kind of a neat experience for me as I'm reading this.
Jesse Quick is the Flash. Although her powers as Liberty Bell showed through the combat sequence as well, because I felt there was that element in there as well, I think we're going to see a continued evolution of her character. And this is something I'm particularly interested in. I was glad there was also an acknowledgement of her relationship with Our Man, and that, he was concerned with, hey, if you're joining this team, what does this mean for us? And I like the idea of a married couple going to different day jobs, that type of thing. And I'm curious to see how that's going to affect their relationship. I'm hoping it works, because I think there's something about them that's interesting. I've liked their co-feature in JSA All-Stars a great deal. I've enjoyed following them there. And I'm curious to see if we're going to continue to see more of that from them, more stories with them as a co-feature. But regardless, I really like the fit of her on this team. I'm curious to see what she brings to the table. Now, characters like Kongorilla and Starman, to me, if I'm looking back at things like the Morrison JLA, they seem to be filling the role for me like Plastic Man and Zoriel did. Now, I don't mean comic relief. I mean that they add a unique flavor to the team, and each have been in comics a long time. Kongorilla through multiple comic book ages, he's got a long history in DC. Not as well known to people, but they're pulling like an iconic character from the past. And his power levels are certainly interesting. And Starman, well, since well before the James Robinson Jack Knight title, that character has been around. And yet, it's a very balanced team of iconic characters mixed with some lesser-known faces that can be developed. That works for me on a JLA team, and I think that's why I was saying, like, Plastic Man, Zoriel was totally brand new for that JLA. Plastic Man, for people, doesn't normally somebody you think of when you think of the Titanic, Superman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Batman. These aren't, you don't think of a Plastic Man in that same league. He has a history, but lesser known, more like a Starman and a Kongorilla. So I think it's a nice balance.
I'm digging Kongorilla and Starman in this. That was some neat stuff showing how in this issue where it was like just the hero who was slowly dying, and Doc Midnight's like, "Hey, I'm not giving up on you. I'm a doctor. This is what I do. This is my business." And I thought that was cool that, he's rushed. He gets the gem, gets it to him, kind of bam, I'm back in the picture. And he's back into the fight. And Kongorilla just throwing down. It's not just brute force. There's a little bit of intelligence there. He's got a brain in his head. He knows what he's doing. So, and it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, yeah, another character I knew nothing about going into this, but I was like, okay, throughout the Cry for Justice, throughout this story arc, I'm getting more of an attachment to the guy. I'm enjoying seeing him in there. I like him as just that kind of member on the team that's, you initially go, what? And then as the story progresses, you're like, okay, I see what he brings to the puzzle. I see what he brings to this mix, and yeah, he's a good part of the team.
Being a huge fan of the James Robinson Starman, McCall Thomas as Starman in this, that for me, I didn't need any selling on that. Your whole explanation of Kongorilla, the what? Yeah, that kind of fits when Robinson announced he was bringing this guy in. I was like, what? But I get it. And to me, he feels like that Zoriel type of character where you don't get it at first. But then as you get to know him during certain issues, you've got a real fondness for this character. He's got that Red Tornado vibe, too, kind of, where he's just that character that, like, I'm starting to dig him. And I couldn't 100% put my finger on why, but there's a lot of personality to this character. I do like that he feels like he can hold his own. But there is a lot, like I said, there's a personality to this guy that really is likable. He's an accessible character. And I love the way that he kind of asks questions many times that we want to ask. He feels a lot more everyman, which is strange when you're talking about a giant, gorilla that, has these intense power levels and everything. But there is something about him that I'm really enjoying. This book has me hooked now, and it's funny. It's been a gradual build to this, but I'm glad JLA has finally found its own legs. Jade has fulfilled her role, and now her life's restored, but I'm still curious to see all of what's going to happen with all these characters. And this is a title where JLA for a while I was picking up because it's JLA. I wasn't picking it up because I necessarily needed to have the full run of it. I was picking it up because I genuinely enjoy following, the deep premier super team. But it felt like so lost, like the characters were, where it was hard to. There was no structured team. They constantly were in turmoil. They constantly were trying to get past these horrible atrocities that were happening, but they never felt like they were building, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. Building to a team where you could feel like they were iconic. I feel like the story arcs that have been in this book so far, since Robinson has taken over, have been about gradually building to a team that feels like it belongs together. Supergirl having the Superman role on this team. They've got all of the right archetypes here with characters that have a long, rich history. Yes, I know that Supergirl, for example, this Supergirl was first in Superman Batman and has had less of a history than the original Supergirl, but this really is the Supergirl archetype from the past. And thanks to Sterling Gates and Jamal Eigel's work, she does feel a lot more like the classic Supergirl with a little bit of an edge. And that's there's something I really like about this character now. So this book has really got into something where it's like very much like what I'm enjoying with JSA. JLA has finally gotten to be one of those books where I grabbed this. It's definitely in my top 5 reads on the week that it comes out of books that I've got to pick up and take a look at and to see what's going on next in JLA. And it's been a while since I could say that about JLA. So it's definitely something. Did you feel that way, or was JLA one of those books you've been always reading a little bit quicker?
No, JLA definitely echoing what you're saying, that it was a title that it wasn't my top tier hero book. I was more into JSA. I was just not it was slowly dropping on my read list, my pull list. And I'm like, okay, I want. We need to get this back because I want to, be hungry for it. I wanted to, when it comes out, I want to grab it and read it, have it be one of those titles, oh, I got to read this. And it wasn't, I got to read it. I was reading, I was like, oh, yeah, that's a cool story. That's neat. But it wasn't the fire and the passion that I wanted from the JLA. I'm getting that now. I'm getting this solid team. I'm getting this content, team that's together, looks good together. It makes sense why they're together, and I'm looking forward to the future stories that's going to come down the pipeline.
Let me ask you this question, because you're a different place than I have. I read the Morrison run with Superman, Batman, Bruce Wayne, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, Kyle Rayner, Wally West being a part of the team, Plastic Man, and Zoriel. Some heavy hitters in there. Would you prefer that to be the team right now? Or would you prefer to read that team in older stories and this to be the team right now? Where would you be at? Because for me, I'm loving that. I read that run. I loved it. It's fantastic. Great characters. This team fits for me. But what would you prefer?
See, it's really not for me, it's not a prefer who's on the team. It's a prefer what the team is doing. What stories are they telling? When the past, the previous issues, like when Black Canary first came into power, when she had those first initial runs where she met with the Trinity in their secret room and she brought her own chair to the meeting, kind of deal, and we saw just what could be the cool strength of Black Canary. I was digging that, and I was loving that. And if the Trinity left the team and it was Black Canary rebuilding the team, I would have loved that. We get a different team now rebuilding the Justice League, and I'm digging that because it's the heroes recognizing this is the Justice League. We need this. We need this team around. We need to be, the best at the best. And it doesn't matter if you got Superman or Supergirl in there. You have to have that team that has that, belief and strength in the unit as a whole. An understanding of this is who we are. This is what we got to do. And that's what I want from the title. For me, you could completely replace people on the team as long as we don't lose that this is the Justice League vibe. I'm happy with it, because that's actually what I was missing from the other stories. I was like, yeah, they're good, and they were starting to build it, and then they lost the build, and they started building, and everything was in fluctuation with the team, and that's what was causing my issues with the title. I want my Justice League to have that, we're the Justice League, dang it, let's throw down. And I'm getting that from this team. So would it be cool to get, the Trinity back in the Justice League? Yeah, of course it would be, because those are some of my favorite characters. the fact that we have Dick Grayson in the cowl, does that matter? No, I'm loving what they're doing with Dick Grayson. The fact that it's Supergirl, I'm loving what they're doing with her. They're showing her, letting her flex her muscle, both as a a hero as well as a powerhouse on the team. Donna Troy, another character that I'm really digging her on the team, so I don't need Diana there. It's more of the attitude that I want as opposed to who is presenting the attitude.
I wish Black Canary as a character had been given the opportunity to do that rebuild you were talking about.
Yeah.
I do think that was probably in the cards, and that got derailed. I think there was a chance for a reckoning for her, and I think that got derailed. And that was something for me, I think that for a while there pulled down my interest a bit, because I always felt like that was a dangling thread that I would have loved to have seen resolved, that I can't imagine Dinah having left it that way.
Oh, I definitely agree. And I think, had we not had a change of creative teams, we probably would have seen, just Black Canary reemerging herself as the leader of the Justice League. And she would have been that rallying point for the team members that they had, and we would have seen the rebuilding that way. But changing creative teams, changing direction, other plans for different characters, kind of deals. And it's part of the politics behind the, the creative process, but I'm just happy we have a solid set, team, and we have a solid set creative forces going through, and I'm looking forward to some really cool stories coming out of this.
Jim, I'd like to jump into, and it's probably our last thing we'll talk about right now, because I've got orientation tomorrow night. So it was a great chance for us to kind of just talk casually about some books. Batman R.I.P. The Missing Chapter Part 2, issue 702. This is one I was really waiting for. The first chapter was awesome. Nothing wrong there, so I'm not taking anything away. But this really laid out for us that Bruce was analyzing what would happen when he fought Darkseid. He actually had, in his mind, he was gathering info on the Omega Effect, what that could mean for him. He started to realize his memory would be lost. Yet, we get to see this moment where he starts setting up, because it leads right up to what we saw at the end of Final Crisis, where he was drawing on that cave, and into what we're seeing in the beginning of The Return of Bruce Wayne, and little clues there. He's come up with his own ways to try and overcome the memory loss, to bring his memory back in a way where he can counter this. I love... See, to me, if Bruce Wayne is not just about the physicality of the character. Yes, he's honed himself physically. He has honed himself mentally, obsessively, to the point where most people can't think the way he can because we have lives. But I love that about him, because he is one of those guys that you should sit there and look up to and be like, wow, wouldn't it be cool to be Batman? But there's few heroes that I think pull this off where you go, I couldn't be that. I could not do that. Yet he makes you strive to say, but how close could I get? In the sense that could I exercise a bit more? Could I read a bit more? And I love characters that make you go, could I? Could I do this? Can I do that? Because they inspire you. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about superheroes, good role models. You got to look at the good with the bad. Any character that makes you start saying, I can do more with myself. People can do more. They're good. There's something valid to those characters, and Batman is one of those, and that's the inspiration of Batman. You got to look beyond the surface level of what he is and look at some of the deep-rooted stuff like that. And he's like one of those, he's that could-I character. And because I don't feel, especially with the way Batman's written now, I could ever attain that. But I would love to think that I can better myself in some way. And that's a cool thing about Batman.
Yeah, he's what happens when you direct and force an obsession, towards a positive end goal. This is really, being Batman is, in a way, if you look at it, kind of like a very negative obsession with him. This is something that he built in his mind, as a child. Well, not only as a child, but as a grieving child, is where basically pretty much the birth of Batman began. And it's something that just over a lifetime of what, he was what he was presented with and what he had to deal with, how he dealt with that grief. But in a way, he never really has dealt with the grief because that's a part of who Batman is. Could Batman ever really be happy? Could really he have a positive life, and put aside the cape and cowl and go on to be Bruce Wayne, have fun, do good things? It's, you really get an idea of the true level of obsession, the true level of the psychotic-ness that he went through to become Batman. The fact that, when Dr. Hurt was doing all that stuff, when, we saw with everything that happened before, with RIP that he was going through, that he had those mental barriers already set up for what-if contingencies. We're seeing now he had what-if contingencies kind of set up for if he fought a god. And this was something that he was developing on the fly pretty much because he, I don't know if he really laid out a game plan ahead of time, but as he was going into it, he's like, okay, this is my scenario. This is what I got to do. This is what I have to look at kind of deal. And I thought that for me was just this impressive nature of who Batman is. I always like good, really cool detective stories and seeing his intelligence, but this just goes a level beyond any intelligence, any preparedness, anything like that you wanted to say with him. I was just like, wow. And once again, just artwork on these issues are just absolutely fabulous. I was sitting there and I was really enjoying it and just going, dang, this is just a cool. I love having this little extra piece to the puzzle, another little now the rest of the story kind of deals. I ate these up.
Now, help me with this. This narrative that he left for all of them, was this when he was doing that cave drawing in the past? Did he leave that for all those years for them to find?
Yep.
That is amazing to me. And I love that he left them a message knowing they would try to find him. He knew that, the ultimate end game was, I'm going to let these people know I'm alive, and I am going to find my way out of this maze before I forget everything. I mean, I love this whole thing. The mark of the bat, my ultimate last case, my ultimate trial, but knowing that when I chose this life, it would never end. And I love this idea. He's sitting there looking over this. There's almost a hope to all this when he's looking outside the cave, when he sees the bats there. And I honestly thought this was an image. I was assuming that Tony Daniel was going to be having him as Batman in his book, because this was one of the teaser images they had for back then with Tony Daniel drawing this, not realizing that this was going to be a part of this issue. I love this image of him. The humanity of Bruce here. He knows these are gods he is facing. This is out of his league. Yet he goes after his opponent anyway. I loved when we saw in the flashbacks here from his perspective, him face off with the Granny Goodness possessed Alpha Lantern. This added a different eye to the story, seeing it from his perspective. One of the joys of R.I.P. was the realization that Bruce knew more than we realized. He used his years of training and adapted to what was happening to him to beat his opponent. This new chapter is reminding us that Bruce is not only a master at survival, but he is a master at analyzing a situation, mentally restoring himself to beat Darkseid at the end of the game. Can Bruce do it? Will he beat the Omega Effect? Are the other heroes right to have worried that his return to present day will lead to Darkseid's ultimate trap? I have to believe that Batman's going to overcome the odds. This issue gives me hope of that. For me, the joy here isn't whether or not he will do it. It's gradually learning how he will do it. I love that feeling. I love feeling like I'm the co-pilot riding along with Bruce on his journey. Morrison is really a master at understanding that this is something that, to me, this is what I want from a Batman story. I want to feel like this moment, like, yes, he's going to do it. And it doesn't forget your superpowers, whatever you got in there. This is Batman. And he's bad in his own way. We've seen him encounter Thomas Wayne in the past, and I'm assuming now, I mean, not assuming, I think we've pretty much had it slapped to our face, that is Dr. Hurt, that one Thomas Wayne from the past. Mm-hmm. Now, do you think there's any remote possibility that this Thomas Wayne could be Bruce's dad? I'm assuming not. I think he's a imposter with his own endgame. But did that enter your head at all? Like, would they go there? 'Cause I don't see that, but... Nah,
that never entered my head, to be honest. I didn't think they'd go that way, or, this is just an imposter.
So it's one of those books, I was looking forward to this one. It was really this issue was the one leading up to Final Crisis. I wanted to know, what does Bruce know? Because I had a feeling like, why are they doing this fill-in missing story? And I think now, I know now why this waited. Because we couldn't know this with that Final Crisis teaser at the end, where we saw Bruce drawing on the cave. Mm-hmm. We couldn't feel this way that early. This was a chapter that needed to be told now. We're heavily into the return of Bruce Wayne. We know that he's coming back. So now's the time to tell us a story of, this is how. This is what dude knows. Yeah. That was really cool. Jim, I'm actually going to make a little addendum to what I said. One more issue we want to talk about, because I already mentioned we were definitely going to talk about this, the Spirit number 5, if that's okay.
Oh, sure.
There's other books that you and I are going to talk about. We'll actually do another episode. Maybe we'll record this weekend and do another one of these little 2-hour jobbers where we talk about some current books, because there's a lot more we want to get to. I know you want to talk about Azrael, and we'll definitely talk about that on that show. David Hine, the writer of Azrael, is writing Spirit number 5 here. Moritat and Andrei Szymanowicz, and I apologize for any name butchering there, are on the art. Spirit doesn't work alone. There are agents on the street such as Ebony and the kids of the street who know the dark side of Central City. Ebony, who's this girl who, I can't tell if she's got an interest in the Spirit, but she seems to really, be one of those girls that likes to help him out, likes what he's doing for the town, wants to see some change in Central City, which is very corrupt. She gets injected because of helping the Spirit and helping the kids in Central City. She gets injected with Frost as a payback for helping the Spirit. There is a treatment for Frost, but the Spirit has to get her there in an hour. The problem is that he's being hunted by the underworld with a hefty price on his head of $100,000. What's cool here is he's on foot. He has to make the choice to go around Damnation Alley and lose 20 minutes or go through it. He does realize that the highest concentration of those who want to kill him are in that area, but he has little choice because of the time frame. How can you lose 20 minutes when you've got an hour? Mm-hmm. I love the art choices in this, especially when we get to see the world through Ebony's eyes as she gradually gets worse and worse due to the Frost. It really added a sense of danger to this whole thing, seeing what she was going through. We have to believe that he needs to make it in an hour or else this girl's a goner, and that added to that. The Battle of the Spirit versus the Thugs looks like him fighting mystical monsters to her, and we see the reality of the situation in the aftermath, but I really enjoyed the shifting between seeing the situation through the perspective of the Spirit, Ebony, and even an onlooker who I was taking to be, the little girl from the, I forget what the name they called them, the Central Let's.
Yeah, the
you know what I'm talking about. It was the group of kids, the Central City kids that were helping the Spirit. This issue to me was really filled with atmosphere. The continuing battles to slow down the Spirit, not just to slow down the Spirit, the continuing battles slowed down the Spirit. Because not just during the fight, but afterwards, we see energy has been taken away because of this. This guy is doing like full-on workout fights that are wearing him down, and I really liked this, especially when he makes the choice to take her over the lake covered with ice versus making it to the bridge. And Jim, I'm sure you felt that avoiding the bridge was actually the sensible approach regardless, but I liked that it was a time factor and also a factor of I'm carrying this girl's weight. I am getting worn out fast. If I don't do this, she is going to be dead. I'm not going to make it. So it's no longer just her. It's, is he going to make it? I love this. No way I can outrun them. Too tired to fight, can barely even stand. This, once they get on the ice, this bit here, the shooting begins, the Spirit's driven on, not by defiance of his foes, but defiance that Ebony is not going to die. Not going to let you die. You hear me? And I love that. You hear all the time about adrenaline and emotion driving amazing human feats. Knowing this is a superpower-free world, it's cool to see these moments play out. And I really, this is a book where the first few issues that it came out, I was enjoying them. And it's funny, I compare it to books like The Shield. I was getting to know the universe. I was enjoying the feel to it. I wasn't sold yet, if that makes sense. I was enjoying the ride. I wasn't upset I picked up the issues, but I wasn't like, Spirit, I've got to read, must read. This was an issue where I'm like, now I'm getting sold on the Spirit. Like Doc Savage has been the first wave book that I've been really digging has been Doc Savage. The Spirit I've been enjoying, but Doc Savage has been like, that's all right. This one is now with issue number 5, I am very Spirit happy.
Yeah, I know it's this. As I said, first wave is definitely on the chopping block, and this has been this is making it very hard for me to cut it because I really enjoyed this story. A lot of the stuff you're talking about, just the hero pushing through the pain, pushing through the end, just to get her to the doctors. I love that. That frozen river scene where they're running across the ice, and I saw it coming with them falling through, but even when it occurred, I still enjoyed it. I still said, yes, this is cool. Now, I really dig the ending because we're starting to see the exhaustion get to him, the bullet wound getting to him as he's kind of passing out in the doctor's office. But this story isn't over because that one little girl has been kidnapped, and he's got until midnight to turn himself over to the bad guys or they kill her. So it's, once again, the next issue, we're going to have to see the Spirit push beyond what he did already. And I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to play out, how that's going to go.
Talk about intensity. It's Central Letts. That's what Imani is about. She was captured, and she's, I guess, the leader, the girl who's the leader of the Central Letts. While that's happening, though, he's collapsing on the floor. Is he dead? Is he alive? I mean, I think we all know he's the Spirit. He's the star of the book. He's alive. But, although with him, he's come back to life before, so what's his deal?
Yeah, he's been killed once before, so...
Ebony's flatline doesn't seem to be recovering. It's fast-moving, intense issue that keeps you wondering how he can hope to win when so much is happening all around him. I'm really digging this now. Like I said before, it's been a gradual build, but now it's got me totally hooked. Talk a little bit about the black and white backup. It's Lapham and Kaluta this time around. During the countdown to the new year, Melvin Reichenbacher, a.k.a. the Lord Shepherd, is released due to a spelling error. And this is a very corrupt town. So you can see that, clerical errors are going to be made because people just aren't motivated to do their job. He feels that this is a sign to complete the Lord's work. He kidnaps a mother and her baby and attempts to kill the baby, thinking it's the devil. The Spirit winds up getting involved and saves baby Damien just in time for the new year. The art on this one was amazingly gorgeous. If you don't know Kaluta artwork, you're in for a treat. It looks really awesome in this feature. How do you feel, Jim, about, do you like when they do the black and white artwork in these, co-features? Are you a fan of the black and white when they're specifically done for the purpose of being black and white? Or what are your preferences?
Yeah, if it's the direct art choice to go with, then I'm all right with it. If it's just black and white to be, something that was color before, we've now made it black and white, I'm like, why? I'm not too, keen on that. But, this was the art choice from the beginning. This is why, what they went with, and I enjoyed this. It's, for me, here's the thing. I didn't really need the co-feature in this. I enjoyed the main story enough that I didn't need. I was like, the cover price that I paid, I thought that was good enough for the story I got in the main thing. So really, the co-feature was just a bonus. From the way I looked at this issue, I was like, okay, this is just another cool Spirit story. Oh, okay, that's neat. Kind of deal.
Did you feel let me ask you a question. You talk about the fact that you're thinking of this one being on the chopping block. Are you definitely putting this one on the chopping block, or is it still a question mark?
Well, okay, it's on the chopping block, but I may not drop the hammer. I may not drop the axe. The first wave books may get a pardon from the governor. I don't know yet. It's,
okay.
But it's Spirit. Any of the first wave stuff are right now sitting in old Sparky. It's strapped in. Whether they flip the switch or not, I won't know, and I probably won't know until I do my next order. Now, I am kind of I kind of have a rule that I try to stick with. I don't try to cancel a book mid-arc. So the Spirit is really kind of mid-arc because I know me personally, I can't walk away from a story arc if I'm right in the middle of it, especially if I'm enjoying it. Like with this one, I really want to see what's going to happen, in the next issue. So I don't see this one getting cut, anytime soon. But I've already ordered the next issue because we do the pre-order. So it's, once again, I'm going to look on DCBS. I'll see what they say. If it's the beginning of a new story arc, it may not make it. I don't know. Is
this issue influencing you in any way? Because for me,
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Here's the thing. Before this issue, the Spirit was dead. I was like, okay, Spirit's about to die a second time here and say goodnight. But this issue, really, and I'd actually stockpiled 2 issues. So I had to read, 4 and 5. And I was just like, oh, this is really cool. Dang, this is neat.
See, it's done being stockpiled for me. It was stockpiled for me as well. This issue, I want to know what happened. Like, a 6 is going to get read pretty quick.
Yeah, actually, and it probably will with me. I'll look and see what I have options. It's not going to be the top of my stack, because you figure I get my comics Thursday night. I got maybe an hour or 2 of reading before I have to go to bed. It probably won't make the Thursday read list, but it'll definitely make Friday.
See, this will make Thursday for me for sure. And we're in different places then in this book, which is okay. This issue, I was like, whoa, the intensity of everything that was going on with this, I'm into it. I want to see what's going to happen. I do worry about books like this. I like the black and white a great deal, and I meant every word I said. The artwork by Kaluta, the story by Lapham, I thought were great. I get worried when a book like this, that's a newer title, gets launched at a $3.99 price point. I think that's a mistake. You're getting a lot of story here. So the extra $1 and the fact that we're getting that cool co-feature, I'm with you in the sense that I felt there was a very satisfying story within the issue. I don't worry about it for me. I worry about it for potential readers who might be considering giving it a chance. And I'm hoping some people who like this kind of story like I do might listen to this and go, hey, you know what? The Spirit sounds cool. This might be something I want to try out. But I get afraid because I think that's what hurt some of the first, not the first wave, I'm sorry, the Red Circle.
Red Circle, yeah.
Was not the quality of the stories. I think that it's hard to check them out at that $3.99 price point with so much competition out there. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But this is definitely a book that I'd like to see people try because I want the Spirit around for a while. This one would not be on the... This one would make me drop an omnibus that I wanted to get to keep it. And that's a decision-making where for me, I'm like, oh, if I drop that omnibus, I can definitely hold on to this book and keep reading it. And this is one of those issues that would pull me from stockpiling it. Because books that I'm stockpiling are definitely ones that for me would be on the chopping block. And it's off the stockpile list. And I hope it stays there. Because David Hines seems to be, I like what he's doing in Azrael, which we're going to definitely talk about in our next episode. And he's definitely a writer that I've got my eye on right now for what he's doing at DC.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Jim, we'll end off with this. It's a favorite comic thread. On the forum, I started with this question. What is your, questions, I should say. What is one of your favorite DC published titles? This could include Vertigo, Zuda, and Wildstorm. Right now, and why? And what is your favorite DC published book that you think deserves more notice and why? I'm not going to read top to bottom every single posting here, but I want to shout out some of the titles and maybe a sentence or two that people were saying about them. It's on our forum, so if you don't go to our forum, please go check, because a lot of people wrote really wonderful things. I just wanted to shout this out really quick. First of all, Billy Batson, the Magic and Shazam. There's a depth to it. It tackles some serious issues, and there are talking tigers. It's great. It has all the depth and maturity of an in-continuity book without all the dark for the sake of being dark stuff that plagues some of those books. So I thought it was a cool comment about that. Red Robin. He's finally having his Nightwing moment where he gets to go off and really define himself. I'm really enjoying that. Batman Beyond. Although it's only planned for 6 issues at the moment, actually the good news, it's now going to be an ongoing. I think the fact that they're even doing it is awesome. And the fact that it's integrated into the DC multiverse, which I agree. I like the fact that it's part of the multiverse. I do like, Jim, and I think we talked about this before, I think one of the strengths of it is that I don't feel like it's being forced into being a part of our future. You can see that it could be, but I don't feel like it has to be. Do you?
Oh, yeah, definitely co-sign what you're saying on this. I like the fact that it is one of the multiverses. I thought that was kind of cool that it was the JLU, the Diniverse, the animated, universe was that, Earth. I like seeing that there's that connection to what we have, but it's not the direct tie-in. So they have their tweaking. They can make little manipulations with that. I thought that was a great way to do it. And it's actually part of, the reason I always argue that I'd like to see Smallville be one of the variant universes for that exact same purpose. Kind of like just bring a little connection within the comic book, not a direct tie, but just a little bit of a connection.
Flash has got some love. Manipul prepares the best comic book artwork right now, and Johns is writing it. Legion of Superheroes, maybe my nostalgia pick, but Levitt's writing my favorite characters again as a special treat each month. Secret Six, the best ensemble book on the stands. They still have stands, don't they? And there's some more love for Secret Six where the favorite under-the-radar title is either Secret Six or Jonah Hex. The writing is superb on both series. I like the one-and-done issues of Jonah Hex and the cast of characters in Secret Six, especially Ragdoll. Batman and Robin got a lot of love. Grant Morrison and an evil Robin, fun and thoughtful, a difficult combination. Batman and Robin has the Morrison brilliance and the sort of throwback feel that I love. I love the smiling Batman and the surly Robin dynamic, and nobody does it better than Morrison so far. Nicieza has shown some pretty brilliant character interaction with Damian, though. I can't believe they actually got me to like Damian. I love the dynamic between Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne. The team-up itself reminds me of a Silver Age story I believe was called The Next Batman and Robin, where Bruce Wayne retired and Dick Grayson took over as Batman. And then the son of Bruce Wayne and Kathy Kane took over the role of Robin. Green Lantern has just come off a really great bunch of storylines that were pretty exciting and pretty dramatic, starting way back to the Sinestro Corps, and chugging onward pretty much uninterrupted, with some action-packed high adventure since then. iZombie got some love. iZombie's a book that I found out through Raging Bullets, damn it, Norge, and the $1 cover price on issue 1 sucked me into it. The art is absolutely beautiful, but I've been enjoying seeing their take on the monster cosmology in this universe unfold. I think it would be great for as this book to give it to fans, tongue-tied, you can tell it's getting late, fans of Buffy Season 8 from Dark Horse to continue along the path of comic readership. You know, that's actually a good point. You and I are both Buffy fans. I wouldn't hesitate to any friends of ours who like Buffy to hand them iZombie. I think they would really enjoy this book.
Oh, in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, I'd pass it on to them.
Mike Allwood's art adds to this quirky book. The simple explanation of different monsters last month was unique. Brightest Day, the event comic. One huge story presented as a modern-day jam comic. Dark Aquaman. What? That could be taken the wrong way. Justice League Generation Lost, the laughingstock Justice League with a serious twist. Exceptional covers. And, you know, it's really just some great love for some wonderful books. And a book that is over that I didn't hear a lot about was Great 10. That was a really cool way of fitting 10 origin stories into a 9-issue storyline that really worked well. I thought that Great 10 was going to be 10 issues. I don't know why I thought that, but I really enjoyed that miniseries. Would you read more Great 10, Jim, if they put it out?
Probably. Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I like seeing it. Great 10 is kind of one of those characters that when I start getting more exposure to it, when I start reading the stories behind it, I go, yeah, this is kind of neat. I liked the personalization of the heroes. They're not American heroes. They are, that their culture. Their culture shapes who they are, why they do it, what their choices are. And I thought that was a very unique way of looking at it. And it wasn't even just, they weren't cookie cutter all one type of character because they're all from that part of the world. No, that region has their own personalities, has their own little different, style to them. So their heroes would have that different style. I really enjoyed that story arc.
And last one, Jim, they mentioned was Booster Gold. And I think this is one that, especially for Notice, it's been a smooth transition from the previous art team. From the previous team. The art is solid, and monthly we've been seeing a great rollicking adventure comic with lots of laughs. Definitely one of those fun comics you hear about. Booster Gold, not just in his own title, his appearances in things like that Time Masters series that's going on right now, where we get to see him keeping up his quote-unquote, under the radar, I'm not really a hero. I'm not really like the true superhero that can save the day. I'm more this hero who's out for myself because he doesn't want people to notice him while he's saving the time stream. And how Rip Hunter encourages that. I love seeing those bits consistently playing out through what Dan Jurgens is doing with him in that miniseries, what's happening in his current book, in his search for Max Lord and for clues about that. I like seeing him back with Barda and Mr. Miracle, and that's a series that I'm really digging. How are you digging that series?
I'm liking it, dude. It's a definite solid read, and it's one of those things where I'm not like, and it's funny. I can't even say I'm not excited, but I don't want to say that it's I'm not like, oh my god, there's so many different levels of excitement that I have, And, in my mind, it's not on the excitement level. It's not like a Secret Six excitement. It's not a Birds of Prey excitement, but it is one of those things. It's a Friday read, definite solid Friday read.
Is it a book that has ever been on the chopping block for you?
No. Friday reads are solid, enjoyment, and never gonna, they're not on the chopping block. They're not considered on the chopping block. It's just, I literally, on Thursday, because the delivery usually comes really late at night, right. And so I usually have maybe time to read 1-2 books at most before I got to go to bed. So it's, so if you make the Friday cut, you're still a very good book. It's the Saturday, Sunday, Monday books that are on the chopping block, or the stockpiling books. Those are the ones that are on the chopping block.
Cool. Booster Gold's been one of those books that throughout it, I've always liked Booster. I loved the Justice League with Giffen and DeMatteis. I've always liked the character. I agree with you. He's one of those books. I think your Friday book example is a great one. Yeah, what day is your chopping block day? Is that Saturday or Sunday?
Actually, probably Sunday. If it's Sunday or stockpiling, you're on the chopping block. You're on the block, or you're being let. You're a dead man walking kind of deal, walking down that last green mile kind of deal. But it's I can't even say. I want to say not. It's an excitement level, but I'm still excited about my Friday books. I'm still enjoying them, and I'm still, as I said, it's a Friday book is a solid book to me that's not even looking at chopping block. Booster is, he's a good character. He's a fun character. We haven't lost anything in the transition of creative teams, and we've always, whenever we talk Booster, we always talk about, just like the time cop kind of deal, the various, time, what can happen if you tweak this, what can happen if you tweak that, the quantum leap stuff, you make references to that, and those are all kind of stories and shows that I enjoyed. So this is fitting in with a genre as well as a hero that I enjoy. I like the fact that he's the greatest hero no one will ever know about. That's just a great way to look at him.
I loved Voyagers as a kid, and this gives me the same kind of smiles of like a show like Voyagers, which had like a little humor to it, but yet you had this sense of adventure and danger and stuff as well, which was kind of cool. Because the lead hero in that one was kind of quirky like that as well. So it's got that kind of vibe, which is something I really enjoy. I agree with you, actually. It's not one of those I have to read it in my initial stack, but it is one of those that I look forward to reading and I genuinely enjoy reading, and it's definitely not a bottom of the stack book for me. I agree with you. It's like a kind of it falls
a Friday read.
Very comfortably in the middle. Your Friday read thing is very good. I like that one. Yeah. But I love that one. Jim, it's funny. I planned so many more books for this. I think we're going to do another one of these over the weekend and make this kind of a two-parter. And we'll kind of continue some discussion on some of the books before we jump into our Gail Simone Spotlight and Batman the Cult, which are coming next, because we're going to do some big cover-to-covers on both of those. So we're going to get a bonus episode, I think, in this weekend of some more of these books, because I've got a lot more I want to talk about. I definitely want to hit Azrael, like you mentioned. I want to talk a little Wonder Woman. There's a lot of books that I want to talk Action Comics, if we could. So there's a whole bunch of stuff I'd really like to discuss. And I think we should hit some more of those books. So we'll do a little bit of that.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
I want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. Listener voicemails are going to be back on the next episode, which is going to be over the weekend. I'm shooting for Monday right now as a late-night release and kind of getting that one out there. We're going to finish up the Speeding Bullets discussion that we have. There's a number of books that we want to kind of showcase and spotlight. We're going to then go on to our Gail Simone Spotlight episode and then on to Batman the Cult. Right before we wrap up this episode, though, I want you guys to have a chance to listen to this segment. This is left over from our last episode. When we were getting ready to log off, we realized there were some things that we still wanted to talk about with regards to that Batman Under the Red Hood DVD. Kind of wrapped up this whole segment and then realized that after all the in-depth discussion we have, there actually is more on this just to talk about. The special features and, of course, the Jonah Hex short. But let's start with the special features. When we were talking with you guys, the three of you bought the 2-disc special edition DVD. I have the Blu-ray. Now, the difference between my disc and yours, the only real difference is you guys had the Dick Grayson documentary, correct?
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
I also had a Jason Todd documentary that was exclusive to the Blu-ray. Other than that,
I'm mad.
Yeah. Other than that, all of the extras are the same on my copy with what you have. Because it said on the thing, exclusive to Blu-ray, was a Jason Todd documentary that went through his life story.
But his entire career, pre-crisis, post-crisis, stuff like that?
Yes. Oh, yeah. It talked about how he was originally very close to the Dick Grayson archetype and how they remodeled him post-crisis to give him some distinction. So it was a really cool documentary. If you only watch the film and you have any of these discs, I highly recommend watching the documentaries, because the documentaries are very well put together. They bring in comic creators, and they also bring in experts like psychology experts and things like that. Mm-hmm. They're very well produced and have these deep, in-depth discussions on these characters. The Dick Grayson one I thought was brilliant. The Jason Todd one is very similar in its presentation, except it's obviously Jason Todd.
The Dick Grayson one I thought could have... I felt it stopped after a certain point, and I kind of wish it would have been a little more encompassing, like in his Nightwing persona.
Yeah.
But overall, I did like it. I would have liked it more if they had done a history on Robin, just like the history of the character itself, going through the different people, and maybe even gone into Tim. Although I did like the features. There's one feature I think they had in previous versions of like these movies that they didn't have in this one. Is I would have loved commentary. I would have loved to have heard have Judd Winnick in a booth talking about the film, and maybe Andrea Romano and someone else just talking and doing commentary, because commentary in film to me is one of the cool things about the DVD aspect, because you can hear the thought process while watching the movie.
One of the special features that they have, and I'm hoping they didn't do this time again, where the single disc didn't have this, the Jonah Hex short. I would like to talk about that real quick, because to me that was such an amazing part of it. And it's actually something now, especially after the Spectre one and now this, I'm really coming to expect on these DC releases, and I think it's a strength and it's a great way to introduce an audience to these characters. The timing, actually, of using the Jonah Hex one was obviously to coincide with the fact that there was recently a live-action film that was released. So let's do something with Jonah Hex here. This, I thought, was absolutely perfect at capturing Jonah Hex. It's vicious.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
It went through him as a bounty hunter, and he goes into this town where a woman in this saloon has been killing people who are rich, dumping their bodies, taking the money for herself. Well, unfortunately for her, and it really is, she's actually a victim of circumstance. Not that she makes victims. Jonah walks into the saloon, and his main concern is one of the people that she's just killed happens to be somebody he's got a bounty on. He needs that money. That's how he makes his income. So he shows in there looking for information. The bartender is like, I've never seen that guy before. There's another girl there, though, who has her own motivations. Like, I want to get out of town. Willing to get me enough money to get out of town? I'll tell you whatever you want to know about that guy. Talk about great choreography sequences. Jonah up in that bedroom, from the woman pulling out the gun, the two guys, her two thugs, coming up through the floorboards and trying to take out Jonah. It went from gunfights to fist fights seamlessly. It showed that it was vicious. It wasn't like Jonah Hex is trained like a Batman or a Jason Todd. It was very
barroom brawl.
Yeah.
Yes.
More barbaric in its presentation, which is what a Jonah Hex should be. I love that about him and his viciousness. It was, I need to get this. You know where this body is. I need the bounty. I need the body in order to get that bounty. He doesn't care about justice. And it really wasn't about him getting justice or really caring. I guarantee you that he could care less about the girl, other than the sense that she could lead him where he wanted to go. She makes the mistake, though, of multiple times trying to kill him, including, I am never going to try and pull a weapon on Jonah Hex underground when the only way for me to get out is a rope. And nobody else knows where I'm at.
She regrets that.
I know, yeah. that ending of that was really creepy, and it shows the mentality of this character in that he's not a good guy, he's not a bad guy, he cares about getting the job done. It's interesting. Again, these shorts they're nice, tight stories, they're short stories. They are jammed filled with action and entertainment and good storytelling. They're really wonderful, and it's interesting that I think it was Thomas Jane who did the voice of Jonah Hex.
Yes.
And I saw I guess he was at Comic-Con, and he was talking about how he was he wanted to play the live action Jonah Hex, and he was like, God was good to me because I didn't get that. I got this instead. So I haven't seen the live action Jonah Hex. I heard enough things about it that kind of kept me away. But from what I understand, people on the internet were saying that this was the Jonah Hex movie that they wish they had got in the live action. I don't know enough to say whether it was or wasn't, because I didn't probably catch Jonah Hex when it comes on DVD. But that's really the consensus that I got from the interwebs.
I did too.
Did you see, Daryl? Did you see the movie?
I still didn't see it yet, so I couldn't say whether or not it is. I just know that from reading the comic, this is the Jonah Hex I've been reading.
We talked about it on the show, and I wouldn't say the film was... It's not all bad. There's a lot of good Jonah Hex stuff to like in there. They made some changes to keep the theme and tone. I gave it a B-, and I do think I'm giving a little extra credit in that B-. C+ is probably a little bit more accurate, because there were some things that were out there in it. But the overall theme of Jonah Hex, the guy Jonah Hex, was in there. Now, the reason why I'm even comparing that, if I'm giving that a B- or C+, this is an easy A.
Yeah.
It's so captured the tone of what Jonah Hex should be. And actually, this is one, if anybody's not reading the Jonah Hex comic monthly, if you liked this short is the comic. This is what the comic is like every month. Those done-in-one stories read like this short does. It's very much great action, great tight story, very complete story at the end, yet you feel like they're ongoing adventures at the same time. Every so often they'll have a 2 or 3 issue, or even the Six Gun War was 6 issues. They'll do a longer story, but for the most part they're done in one. This is an example of something I would use as a demo for the comic book from here on out. They ought to really put it on the website as like a freebie. And
sure. Yeah.
Right on next to that Jonah Hex, when you click on a DC to see the cover images for Jonah Hex, shorts like this should be up there, and just say, this is the kind of action you would get in this comic book, because it's so perfectly captured what Gray and Palmiotti are writing every month in that comic book. And it was just plain perfect. And this is one, Jim, I've told you again and again, if you like that short, you need to be reading this book monthly, because it is that badass. And I mean, that's exactly, there's no other way to describe Jonah Hex than just what this short was.
Absolutely, because I read random issues of the Jonah Hex through friends, and here and there I've seen a trade, and it's almost uncanny. It's even the art style, the way I could just see the comic book in this short, and
it was adapted from a story from the comic.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was. When you look at the credits, it even says in the credits it was adapted from a story in the comic book by Gray and Palmiotti. So really? That's why the tone is captured so well, because they went to one of those stories for this.
Oh, wow. Do you know what issue that was from?
I don't know off the top of my head. It was one of the things I noticed in the credits of it, that it mentioned that it was adapted from a story by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti.
Even with these shorts, like even with this one and the Spectre, they're getting top-notch voice actors. I think they got Alyssa Milano in the Spectre one. They continue to get great talent to do these voices, and I think it's one of the reasons why it's just one of many reasons that these shorts and these movies do so well.
This is where they've got me like a fish on a hook with these releases. They're releasing a collection of animated shorts. Besides the fact that we've got Superman, Batman, Supergirl, there's a Green Lantern Corps 1 coming out, and I think it's rumored that the All-Star Superman story is going to be one of the ones. I haven't seen an official word on that, but that was rumored on one of the sites. That's a rumor, though, so that one I'm still kind of, until I see an official announcement.
Batman Year 1, right? From what I understand.
I hope that's another one I've heard rumors on too. I haven't seen an official announcement, but that would be great if they do that one. But they're taking all the shorts, I guess. And I don't know, which, obviously they're probably doing it from the next couple releases, and collecting them on a disc. But then, to hook you into buying it if you already own all the shorts, they're putting a Superman Shazam one on there exclusively.
Oh, wow.
I know they're evil, is what they are.
And I'm not even gonna pretend they're ticking me off, and I'm not gonna buy it. I was like, sitting there, Superman Shazam short. That's the funny part. They've been so good. Like the Spectre, Jonah Hex, they'd have to have a real stinker in there somewhere for me to go, that Superman Shazam's not worth it.
Aren't they doing a Green Arrow short coming up? Is that going to be on the Superman, the Supergirl one?
I honestly don't know. I haven't looked ahead at the shorts on those, but God, I hope so.
I swear I thought I heard they were doing a Green Arrow one at some point. Whether if it's on the Supergirl story or not, I'm not 100% sure, but I was fairly certain.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be Green Arrow is going to be the short on the Superman, the Supergirl story that they're going to do. That's coming up.
That makes perfect sense, actually, because when you think about that, that would be right around the kickoff of Smallville, and you've got the Green Arrow character there. So if you're going under the theme, like they did this one on this short because the Jonah Hex film was out, tie in with that. Green Arrow, when there's going to be a Green Arrow on television at the same time. It makes sense, and that's actually smart on their part.
I never even thought of that, but that's brilliant. I never even put, like when you said the Jonah Hex, I didn't really think about too much about the movie, but when you're talking about the Green Arrow and how it's coming up with Smallville, that's actually brilliant. That is really, really smart thinking. That's Batman thinking.
Well, the great thing about it is you've got a version of Green Arrow on television. I love the Smallville version of Green Arrow, but now here's a short that's going to show you this is what the comic book version's like, and here's where the little tweaks and differences are. And these are great jumping on points then, and this is something I was hoping when this DC Entertainment was formed that they were going to continue. Obviously, these shorts, I mean, this whole direct-to-DVD release was in place before they had formally done that, but part of the behind-the-scenes discussion of tightening up and getting more exposure for their characters did lead to these shorts being added onto these direct-to-DVD releases, and the people who are green-lighting this kind of stuff are just plain brilliant, because these characters, this is a great way to get people interested in Green Arrow in comics. Mm-hmm. Put them on a DVD as a short.
It's great ways, for people who are buying you're buying it for the movie, but you get to see other characters in short spotlight and say, hey, that's pretty interesting. I wonder what else I can find of him, and maybe that will, hey, let me try Smallville, or let me check out this book. Or it's a great way to showcase, and they're called showcase, so it's a great way to showcase these characters.
I do love that intro.
Yeah.
It's a great way to showcase these characters and say, hey, DC's got some great characters that we've had for a while, and you should check them out. And one of the things I love about it is that intro where they have where you're in the, I guess it's like a spinner rack with all the books in there, and they go into the movie. It's very well done. I mean, every aspect of it is just really great.
Amen.
I love seeing Bruce Timm there. The first one, when you zoom on in, that one head there, that's Bruce Timm's head sitting there.
I think Bruce Timm did the voice of the Riddler, too.
He did.
Did he?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Andrea Romano was one of the voices as well in this one.
You saw the new guy comes in during the first meeting with Black Mask. For a quick second, I was reminded of Paul Levitz. I don't know why. He looked a bit like Paul Levitz to me.
They might have done a little thing for him.
I'm sure that there's all kinds of little Easter eggs and nods throughout these types of, just like there are in comics. If it wasn't directly Paul, I'm sure just taking any of the characters, I'm sure there's nods to cousins, aunts, uncles, brothers, comic creators, things like that. I love that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Easter egg sites and things like that, just for that purpose.
It's funny because even with the comics, I didn't realize that I'm reading the linear notes in the Death of the Family, the DC Classics, and that Tim Drake was actually named for Tim Burton because the movie he came around the same time as the Batman movie.
I did not know that. Do they have a lot of notes like that in the Death in the Family hardcover?
In the DC Classics, to The Lonely Place of Dying, that is an intro from Barbara Wolfman talking about how they needed a new Robin, that they had problems with Jason, and that they brought in this new guy, Tim Drake, and they talked about the name relation to Tim Burton. One of the cool things about the DC Classics Death in the Family is the last page. They actually have the page where I think it's reprinted maybe once in a Batman annual, they said, where Jason lived. So you have Batman all happy. He's holding Jason Todd in the same way, but it's like, thank God he's alive. And he puts him in a truck, and the truck drives off. And so they have a whole page of what they would have happened if he had lived. So
now I gotta buy that too.
I know. I was thinking the same thing.
It's one page. It doesn't show you anything past that. but it just shows you a couple of panels of big sigh. There's this big, huge smile on Batman's face of relief that, oh my God, he's alive. They puts him on a truck and they drive off. And didn't know what to expect when I got, because I got it through a friend of mine. The Death in the Family, it has the covers to it. And then as a companion piece, it also has A Lonely Place of Dying, which I felt, added bonus. Because the whole thing comes out of, Jason's death and not wanting another Robin, but this character is so good.
And years later,
exactly. And then you had that one extra piece. What would have happened if you lived? Because obviously they must have had both issues out just in case one came over the other. I haven't read the intros and the aftermaths enough to remember it, but there is stuff in there that talks about the stories, and it's good to have. I mean, it's good to. I don't have the individual issues anymore, and this is the only way I've seen it in a while. I haven't seen I used to have the Death in the Family trade where it was that big dark black cover with just Batman holding Robin, but the DC classics are pretty cool in that they do a good job of reprinting the stories, and they give you a little bit of info behind the stories, which I always found interesting.
I always wished they released, because I thought, I've read in multiple interviews, that they actually had the alternate issue completely complete, the one where Jason lived.
I would imagine they had to have it completely complete because because they weren't sure which one was going to go which way, and that's an issue I would have loved to see. I would love to have seen that issue with what the characterizations would have been like in that issue. Like Bruce been annoyed that Jason once again disobeyed his order and went in ahead without thinking, or would he have maybe changed his attitude and tried to have been more giving and more emotionally different with Jason and tried to have. That's an issue I would have loved to have read, and if it's out there, I would love to check that out.
Everything I've read is that they had it and then that they never will release it. And I don't know how far complete it was, what level of completion they got to. Like, what did they consider complete at the time? Was it ready to be colored? Was it, was the artwork not completely? Was there 2 scripts? See whatever material they had from it. If they released that in a hardcover, I'd buy it in an instant. Just because I'm that curious. I'd love them to put all of the material that led up to it, whatever, like a complete alternate issue to Death in the Family.
If they took an omnibus and put both versions in that one thing, and then interviews on it, I would buy it.
It was such a unusual story in where the company let the audience decide the fate of where the story should go. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it had ever been done in that way or been done since.
Especially voting to kill a major character. Robin's a major... I mean, yes, it's Jason Todd, the second Robin, but regardless of it, take the Jason Todd name on it. We voted whether or not we were going to kill Robin. That's huge.
It's
and
huge.
It stayed that way for a long time.
Sure did.
Yeah. That's just something that I think I give a lot of credit to DC for doing, because this is something where they really said, hey, fans, we want to know your opinion. We want to do what you want us to do. If you want us to keep this character around, vote this way. If you don't like this character anymore and you want us to get rid of him, vote that way. And it was something, it was close, but they went with the way the majority of the fans wanted. And for a while, it kept that way. And a lot of even Batman stories and even some of the earlier Nightwing stories, you saw dealt with that event, and it was something that was really interesting and it was unique for that time. I think even now it would be an interesting way to do it. I mean, I can see having an event and then have an internet poll at the end. Vote this way if you want this to happen. If you want, vote that way to have this to happen. I mean, it would be an interesting thing, and you would have it. People would write about it in newspapers. Marvel's having it, or DC's having this thing where you could vote on what you want to have happen. And I thought it was a very interesting thing to do for this particular story for that particular character.
And that time frame, because they gave us a lot of freedom to really make a decision there, and it really mattered. It meant something. We say it's been undone, but it really hasn't. Other than Jason Todd's back, yes, but the fact that they took him out of the game as Robin, they killed him. They brought him back recently as villain in a role that they're never going to undo what they did there. Tim Drake has for years been Robin. He's still, he's Red Robin now, but
yeah.
I don't think they've ever done this to a character where you could vote on the fate. I mean, even Superman, you didn't vote on whether or not Doomsday was going to kill him or not. And with this, it was such a unique thing, and it was such a, I think, momentous thing that they did, because they took such a major character, like you said. Take away the fact that it was Jason Todd that only been around for a while. The character of Robin had been around since 1940. He celebrates his 70th anniversary this year. People remember him from the television show in the 60s and the cartoons. And so when you put him in that position and then you allow the fans to vote on his well-being, it made you feel a part of the decision process, which I've always respected from that story, and I've always loved about that aspect of that story, where we as the fans were able to decide the outcome, which was always been a cool thing for me.
Well, guys, I want to thank you both once again for joining us on this episode. That was a ton of fun, and I'm glad, Jamie, as we were logging off, you reminded me, wait, we didn't talk about the extras on this disc, because I wouldn't want to forget to talk about the shorts and things like that. So, guys, thank you both again very much for joining us tonight.
Nothing like the handy-dandy electro claw for carving through metal doors.
I actually want to shout out Russ Hagan, a friend of the show, is doing a cancer walk for his mother, and I wanted to shout this one out. It's www.run10k-sponsorme.org/Russell Hagan. And that's in the show notes, so don't worry about writing that down. It's also available on the website for a handy-dandy link. But consider supporting that. My own mother's been fighting breast cancer for the better part of the last 4 years. She's had a few breaks here and there, but it's been pretty consistent. So cancer in general, whenever people are doing things to support cancer research and support families that are going through trials because of cancer, it's just something that hits home for me. So I really wanted to shout this one out, and please consider supporting Russ for that. Jim, our next episode's going to be up this weekend, and we're going to it'll be late in the weekend, like Sunday. We're going to continue our Speeding Bullets discussion here. There's a lot of books that we want to discuss. The reason why we're doing the Speeding Bullets episode, then jump into the Gail Simone Spotlight, and then Batman the Cult, I wanted to make sure we touched on a lot of books that are going on right now, some things we haven't discussed in a while, some things we have, before we jump into a few episodes where we are going to be kind of stepping away from the current material. So when we jump back to it, we've covered a lot of the titles that have been out right now. And there's been a lot of things. I remember Azrael was one of the ones that you said, I definitely want to talk about the Azrael storyline, particularly the Crusader, that we're going to be chatting about on next episode. So I'm really excited to talk more of these books. Our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. This Friday, DCBService.com. Be sure to check out the brand new books that are coming out from DCBService.com. I'm excited for that. Over at InStockTrades.com, don't forget to check out, as we mentioned, that Tiny Titans Volume 4. Tiny Titans is one of those books. You talked about the chopping block. Tiny Titans for you. Is that an early Friday read, or how does that fit into your reading list, Jim?
It's a Friday, and actually, it's been I've read that sometimes on Thursdays.
I have too.
If I've had a bad day at work and Tiny Titans is in the box, I pull that right out and sit down and read it immediately, because by the end of reading that, I am laughing and I am chuckling, and I'm like, okay, my really bad day I just had at work, everything's okay now. So yeah, it's a Friday, sometimes Thursday read.
You know what? As Tiny Titans is one of those books, I always read the issue more than once. It's one of those, it's usually like, it's not right back to back. I'll usually read it, set it down. I will page through it again, look at some of the jokes. It just makes me smile. It's a fun book. If you haven't been reading Tiny Titans, do yourself a favor and check this out in trade format. Volume 4 is out. Check out Tiny Titans from InStockTrades.com. And I want to thank them for continued sponsorship of the show. Don't forget to check out ComicCollectorLive.com, your comic book management source. Don't forget that we are going to be at the New York Comic Con. That's nycomiccon.com. There's a handy link on the Raging Bullets website where you can click right on that. It's October. Jim, I'm inventing brand new words.
All right.
What month is it that we're going to be at the New York Comic Con? October 8th, 9th, and 10th. You can come over and see us in the podcast arena where you can fight me and my tongue. So that's the New York Comic Con. Not necessarily in that order. So we will see you at the New York Comic Con, and we will see you in a few days with more Speeding Bullets.
Bye.